Chapter 988. Although the 8 trigrams extermination sword technique was not Yi Chen's strongest killer move, the increase in cultivation realm and the strength of the soul allowed this sword technique to have the attack power of a 5-star overlord. In addition, the destruction sword essence could restrain the evil energy. The only explanation for the King of Sky Destruction's ability to block this move was that his combat power had reached the 6-star level. Putting aside the fact that he had a 6-star combat power, the King of Sky Destruction's inextinguishable energy was also so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. Yi Chen's sword attack just now had only destroyed a trace of his power. Devouring Blood Flower. Before this, the Demon Flower Emperor had already started to weave seals rapidly. When the King of Sky Destruction's body had just condensed, a blood-red flower that was as big as a mountain swallowed the King of Sky Destruction in one gulp and tightly wrapped him up. Shortly after, it shrunk at a shocking speed and finally shrunk to the size of an ordinary house. Crack! Unfortunately, the King of Sky Destruction's strength was too strong. He tore the devouring blood flower in half with his hands. The white cloth fluttered as he pounced towards the Demon Flower Emperor at extremely fast speed. Flower Shield. The Demon Flower Emperor had rich combat experience. When she saw the King of Sky Destruction pouncing towards her, she did not panic at all. Clusters of black flowers condensed and compressed in front of her, turning into a flower shield that shone with a black radiance. Boom! The King of Sky Destruction had a 6-star combat power after all. Although the flower shield had the absorption ability of the Demon Flower and could absorb energy damage, it only lasted for a moment before it was completely penetrated by the King of Sky Destruction. The twisted palm that was wrapped in the white cloth grabbed towards the Demon Flower Emperor's head, as if it wanted to take her head off. Courting death. How could Yi Chen watch the Demon Flower Emperor perish? He executed the orbital steps and instantly appeared beside the King of Sky Destruction. The iron-blooded silver-blue sword seemed to tremble slightly, and countless folded sword lights enveloped the King of Sky Destruction. Poof, poof, poof. The King of Sky Destruction's eyes were ferocious as he forcefully resisted Yi Chen's sword move. He was still prepared to forcefully kill the Demon Flower Emperor. However, this void essence slash of Yi Chen came from the Yuan Emperor. It was the most miraculous move. The folded sword lights not only sliced open the King of Sky Destruction's body, but also isolated the space. The King of Sky Destruction's palm passed through layers of overlapping space, but he was unable to reach the Demon Flower Emperor. He was like a drowning old man trying to grab on anything on the water's surface in vain. I'm going to eat you alive. The King of Sky Destruction turned his target to Yi Chen. With a bang, his body exploded into a ball of majestic yin qi. The yin qi was like a whirlwind, freezing the void and sweeping toward Yi Chen, who was close at hand. I am immortal. Switching between offense and defense, the iron-blooded silver-blue sword held horizontally in front of his chest. Yi Chen's eyes became calm and solemn. A powerful immortal sword will seeped out of his body and protected him. Whoosh! The yin qi engulfed Yi Chen and brushed past him, appearing behind Yi Chen. On the other hand, Yi Chen was enveloped by a layer of white holy light that was invisible to the naked eye. Outside the holy light, gray smoke kept bursting like dust. The immortal sword will had advanced to the 6th rank. In a battle of the same level, Yi Chen was almost invincible. It was absolutely impossible for the King of Sky Destruction to hurt him. Damn it! The King of Sky Destruction's body was emitting green smoke. Previously, when Yi Chen had attacked him with a sword move that contained the destruction sword will, he had not been injured much. At most, his power had decreased a little, which could be ignored. However, when he had brushed past his opponent's body just now, he had been seriously injured. Although the immortal sword will was not as powerful as the destruction sword will, when he had tried to invade Yi Chen's body, he had been repelled by the immortal sword will and destroyed. Mysterious way freeze. An ancient door suddenly flew toward the King of Sky Destruction. It was Xianhou who had made a move. The King of Sky Destruction's eyes flickered. A pair of gray wings formed by dense, Shi appeared on his back. With a flap of the gray wings, he shot out like a shooting star, shuttling through the void. His speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to lock him down with soul power. However, he had underestimated Xuanho's mysterious way. As the King of Sky Destruction dodged, the ancient door suddenly enlarged by 1,000 times. No, it should be said that the ancient door did not enlarge, but the space inside the door shrank by 1,000 times. The King of Sky Destruction's figure was like a speck of dust. No matter how fast he was always within the range of the ancient door. In a split second, the ancient door covered the King of Sky Destruction. The King of Sky Destruction roared again and again. His violent energy attacked the ancient door. Instantly, the ancient door was full of cracks, and it looked like it was about to collapse. Kill! This was a rare opportunity. Yi Chun held the iron blood silver blue sword with both hands and slashed out. The dark green sword screen ignored the space distance. With a flash of green light, the King of Sky Destruction's body was split in the middle. Before he could turn into Shi and escape, a dark green light suddenly burst out, shining like a sun. The scream was earth-shattering. In the dark green light, a large amount of Shi was annihilated. A distorted human face kept struggling, as if it wanted to tear apart the seemingly gentle but actually violent and destructive dark green light. Unfortunately, its power was too weak. The dark green light was the power of water and fire, and a trace of it could destroy a mountain, together with the 6th rank destruction sword essence. Not to mention that it was weakening now. Even if it was at its peak, it would not be able to bear the consequences. Puff! The last trace of Shi was annihilated, and the King of Sky Destruction's voice stopped. No wonder he is the first king under the Emperor of True Water. If he had not turned into an evil spirit, it would have taken me several times more effort to kill him. The evil spirit body had indeed greatly increased the King of Sky Destruction's immortality. However, he had encountered Yi Chun, who had the Destruction Sword Essence and the Immortal Sword Essence, and was completely restrained. Of course, if it were not for Xuanho and the Demon Flower Emperor, Yi Chun would have had to spend more effort to kill him. The Demon Flower Emperor's Demon Flower had absorbed a lot of his power. Xuanho's mysterious way had even reversed the environment, so that the opponent could not absorb any power. Finally, she had used the mysterious way to freeze the opponent. It could be said that the Demon Flower Emperor was not only the kind of king who became stronger the more he fought, but also one of the best teammates. With her around, as long as the opponent's strength was not too strong, she would constantly weaken them. As for Xuanho's mysterious way, it could be said to be unpredictable. It was no wonder that when the Dragon King and Xuanho joined hands, they could kill the 9 Underworld Demon King, who had no way to escape and almost died. With the King of Sky Destruction's death, only the Emperor of True Water was left. The three's mood became a little heavy. The King of Sky Destruction was already so strong. They did not know how strong the Emperor of True Water, who could leave a mark on the Emperor's Scar Steel, was. They hoped that it was as Yuan Emperor had said. The Emperor of True Water, or that evil spirit expert, was currently at his weakest. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the 3 of them to defeat the other party. Buzz! In the center of the 12 towers, there was a dense fog. Suddenly, an extremely evil power burst out, like a huge stone thrown into a lake. Ripples spread out, and a chilly wind roared. But soon after, this evil power seemed to be cut off, turning into a rootless duckweed, and calmed down again. Yi Chun opened the silver vertical eye between his brows and tried his best to look at the center of the fog. This fog was formed by dense Shi, and it was very turbid. Through the fog, Yi Chun could vaguely see a few blurry shadows. Yi Chun tried his best to see the faces of the shadows, but the laws there were too chaotic. The sealing power and evil power were mixed together, and even the soul eye could not see through them. Closing the soul eye, Yi Chun slowly let out a breath and said, "Someone came here before us. Let's go in and see." Different from Yi Chun and Xuanho, the dense and terrifying evil power here did not make the Demon Flower Emperor uncomfortable. Of course, she did not like it either. Activating her protective Jin Yuan, or demonic power, the three walked into the fog step by step. It was unknown how deep the fog was. It was like a surging sea. When the three of them entered, there was not even a splash of water. After about half a cup of tea's time, the fog disappeared and the three of them came to a huge flat stone ground. In the center of the flat stone ground, there was a blood-red pattern with a diameter of dozens of meters. The blood-red pattern was formed by countless ripples, and it also looked like the ancient character for water. How could the three of them not know that this was a seal? Beside the blood pattern stood 4 figures. Yi Chun and the other 2 all knew these 4. They were actually the Destruction Demon Emperor, the Golden Turtle Old Ancestor, the Black Fiend Emperor, and the Earth Demon Emperor. It's you guys? The 4 had already noticed that someone had come in, but they did not expect that it would be Yi Chun, Xianhou, and the Demon Flower Emperor. In fact, they thought that everything was foolproof. After all, their actions were very secretive, and not a trace of energy leaked out. On the contrary, the seal around the true Water Palace ruins prevented the energy from leaking out, which served as a cover. So, you have all been possessed. After a slight shock, Xuanhou's expression returned to normal. How did you know we were here? The Destruction Demon Emperor asked calmly. Yi Chun smiled faintly, with a sharp glint in his eyes. If you don't want people to know, then don't do it. Although he said so, Yi Chun also knew that if it were not for the Yuan Emperor's seal and the Yuan Emperor's doppelganger beside him, he would never know that something had happened here. Since you are here, don't leave. The 3 of you stay. The Destruction Demon Emperor did not panic at all, and the corner of his mouth raised into a sinister sneer. Before the matter is resolved, we naturally will not leave. Yi Chun released the sword domain, which enveloped the entire area. Huh! The possessed golden turtle old ancestor roared, and a powerful domain burst out from his body. This domain was extremely evil, and it constantly attacked Yi Chun's sword domain. If we were outside, I might be afraid of you, but unfortunately, you should not have come here. The endless evil power here can be absorbed by us at any time, and our strength will multiply. The voice of the golden turtle old ancestor was sharp and thin, extremely ear-piercing. His gaze, with a lustful look, swept over Xianhou and the Demon Flower Emperor, and he sneered. I'll leave the 3 of them to you. Remember, don't let them escape. The Destruction Demon Emperor did not seem to have any intention of making a move. Waves of evil power condensed into runes, branded on the blood pattern, and eroded the power of the seal. At this moment, more than half of the blood pattern had been eroded, and gray mist escaped from time to time. Chapter 989. Don't worry, they won't be able to return this time. The Earth Demon Emperor's tongue was very long, like a snake's tongue. It could almost reach his ears. His eyes were no longer the original beast pupils. Instead, they were like the pupils of a hornet's nest, which contained countless compound eyes. Being stared at by him, Yi Chun and the other 2 felt like they were in a maze. Everything around them was getting further and further away. What a powerful eye technique. Xianhou raised her eyebrows, and a mysterious aura spread out. Under the interference of this aura, the illusion of the eye technique that was eroding reality was immediately forced out. What kind of realm is this? The Earth Demon Emperor stopped being careless. He wasn't good at fighting head-on. He was good at soul attacks and various illusion techniques. Although the eye technique just now wasn't his strongest illusion technique, it was very hard to defend against it. Moreover, it was extremely fast. Some kings who were stronger than him would fall into it if they were careless. 10,000 bugs, you've met your match this time. The Black Demon Emperor's body was emitting light black smoke. This smoke seemed to be spiritual, and it would transform into tentacles or palms from time to time, which was very shocking. As for the 10,000 bugs that the Black Demon Emperor mentioned, it was the Earth Demon Emperor. As the person who had taken over the body, his original personality had been devoured by them. The one who had taken over the Nirvana Demon Emperor was called Tian Xie. The one who had taken over the Golden Turtle Great Ancestor was called Jin Sha, and the 10,000 bugs was the Earth Demon Emperor. As for the Black Demon Emperor, he was called Xiesho. Humph, she only broke my compound eye technique. Later, I'll let her know what it means to want to die. The 10,000 bugs that had taken over the Earth Demon Emperor's body sneered. He was very confident in himself. After observing the characteristics of the Three's aura, it wasn't hard for Yi-chan to guess that the evil spirit that had taken over the Golden Turtle Great Ancestor's body should be a strong attack type. He was very strong in head-on combat. The one that had taken over the Earth Demon Emperor's body should be good at illusion techniques. As for the evil spirit that had taken over the Black Demon Emperor's body, it should be a strange type. He probably had some powerful evil techniques. Seniors, you can just support me from aside. Leave them to me. It was impossible for Yi-chan to let Xianhou and the Demon Flower Emperor take the risk. Although the two of them had unique abilities, their battle prowess was slightly lower. In a one-on-one fight, it would be difficult for them to win. If they supported him from the side, they would be more useful. You're courting death. Let me, Gold Thug, deal with you. If they were in the outside world, Gold Thug might not be a match for Yi-chan. However, in here he was fearless. With a loud roar, a dark golden metallic light erupted from his body. The light was extremely dazzling and filled with evil energy. As soon as it appeared, it immediately condensed into streaks of dark golden sharp blades. Like tens of thousands of arrows that shot out at the same time, they pierced through the air towards Yi-chan and enveloped Xianhou and the Demon Flower Emperor. Yi-chan's expression was calm as he unsheathed his iron-blooded silver-blue sword and slashed twice in the air. Ding, 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 ding. Countless sounds of metal colliding broke out. It seemed like Yi-chan had only brandished his sword twice, but he had blocked all the dark golden sharp blades that were coming at him. The speed of his sword was fast, and the angle was accurate. It had reached an unbelievable and unpredictable realm. Even Xianhou and the Demon Flower Emperor were shocked. The most powerful swordsman since the ancient times. Even the ancient Sword King is not as good as him. He's really inhuman. The Demon Flower Emperor muttered in his heart. This kind of sword attack comes without any sign. It's without the heart or the sword. It has already surpassed the level of using the will or the heart to control the sword. Xuanhou's eyesight was much better than the Demon Flower Emperor. Although she wasn't a swordsman, it didn't hinder her understanding of swordsmen. According to what she knew, there were 3 kinds of sword attack realms for swordsmen. They were body control sword, chi control sword, and the highest heart control sword. However, what Yi-chan had just displayed had clearly surpassed heart control sword. Using the heart to control the sword intent meant that the heart would move and the sword would move, making the sword heart bright. However, Yi-chan had just attacked without any warning, giving people a very abrupt feeling. It was as if the sword had already attacked before the intent had even moved. Thousands of dark golden sharp blades couldn't move an inch forward. It was as if there was a chi wall that extended far in front of Yi-chan, firmly protecting the 3 of them. Suddenly, Yi-chan flipped his wrist. As the sword light shot out, a trace of transparency appeared in the air. Tian Xie, who was occupying the Nirvana Demon Emperor's body, was undoubtedly the leader of the 4. He frowned as he felt a strong sense of danger approaching. He's really arrogant. As the thought flashed through his mind, transparent hexagonal glass appeared around Tian Xie's body. These hexagonal glasses were embedded together, forming a seamless shield. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. It seemed that something extremely sharp had slashed the shield. However, the next moment, Tian Xie's expression changed. There was a sword mark on his chest, and blood flowed out. How is this possible? I clearly blocked it. Tian Xie didn't care about such a small injury. What surprised him was how his opponent's sword chi managed to injure him. Even he only realized it after the fact. Moreover, he was 100% sure that his defensive barrier had completely sealed off the sword. Dense killing intent was released. Tian Xie stared coldly at Yi-chan. He couldn't let this kid grow any longer. Whether he admitted it or not, this kid had already become the most troublesome person in Elysium. What a pity. The one who had unleashed this sword was Yi-chan. He didn't use orbital slash. Although Orbital Slash could attack through protective energy, its destructive power was slightly weaker, and it didn't have much practical value. He used Void Energy Slash. To a certain extent, Void Energy Slash could also ignore protective energy, and its destructive power was much greater than Orbital Slash. If it could hit the opponent directly, it would definitely injure him and interrupt his unsealing. Apart from that, the core of this sword was that there was no sword in the heart. The intent came later, and the sword came first. When the opponent sensed danger, the sword chi had already arrived. However, the opponent's protective energy had been activated too quickly. It seemed to contain mental power. With a thought, the defense was formed. Although it wasn't as good as Yi Chen's no sword in the heart, considering the distance between them, the difference in time was more or less offset. In the end, the sword chi was slightly faster. The front part of the power was transmitted to the opponent, and the back part was blocked by the shield. Evil God Barrier. Tian Xie was corroding the blood seal, and he couldn't stop it. Luckily, he was prepared. He had placed many black crystals around the blood seal. Originally, he didn't plan on using them. He just wanted to prevent accidents from happening, but he didn't think that accidents would really happen. Yi Chen and the other two would find him. As the evil power surged into the black crystal, a black barrier rose up, enveloping the blood-red seal and the heavenly diabolism. Above the black barrier, a blurry figure condensed. Although the evil power was not as strong as the evil power in the blood-red seal, the difference was like heaven and earth. It was as if it really was the projection of the evil god. Pung pung pung. Yi Chen used his super-fast sword speed to continuously slash the black barrier, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. He couldn't shake the evil barrier with the blurry image guarding it. Don't be arrogant. Seeing that Yi Chen didn't put them in his eyes at all, Wanzhong was enraged. Evil power poured out of his palms, turning into countless black crows. These crows cawed loudly and pounced at Yi Chen. A strange scene occurred. When Yi Chen's sword chi slashed at the black crows, it went right through them, as if they didn't exist at all. It's an illusion. Yi Chen had a feeling in his heart. I will deal with his illusion. The mysterious queen had dabbled in many mysterious daos, including illusions. She used her Jin Yuan to condense a mirror, which expanded rapidly until it seemed to connect with the void. Those black crows that didn't exist in the mirror became corporeal and disappeared one after another. In the next moment, the black crows rushed out of the mirror and pounced towards the myriad bugs. Illusion rebound. Damn it. 10,000 insects knew how powerful his illusions were, and even though he could deal with them, he was caught off guard and cut a sorry figure. Countless crows drilled out of his mouth, eyes, and even chest, and a heart-wrenching pain spread through his entire body. He lost control of his evil power and started to dissipate, greatly weakening his aura. Pung 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 pung. Without any reason, Yi Chen's heart started to beat faster. He thought about something and looked at his heart. Inside the coconut-shaped heart, there was a crow that had appeared out of nowhere. It was trying to break out of the heart's wall. If a normal person were to see this, they would probably be scared to the point where their face would turn pale and their mind would be in a mess. What a powerful illusion. Although Xianhou had reflected the illusion, Yi Chen, who was the target, still suffered from the aftermath. I am immortal. Yi Chen did not know about illusion, nor did he cultivate it. His expression remained the same. The immortal sword soul in his sea of soul released a wisp of white holy light covering his body. Poof! The crow in his heart suddenly disappeared. It was purely an illusion. At this moment, Gold Thug, who occupied the body of the Golden Turtle Great Ancestor, and Evil Hand, who occupied the body of the Black Fiend Emperor, seized the opportunity to attack. Gold Thug made a grabbing motion with his hand, and a dark golden machete was formed, slashing at Yi Chen. On Evil Hand's body, countless tentacles formed from evil power spread rapidly, entangling and attacking Yi Chen. Clang! Yi Chen cut the dark golden machete in half with his sword. Then, the iron blood silver blue sword took advantage of the momentum and swept out. The sword ray was like a mirror, shredding all the tentacles that were entangling him. Soldiers of evil. Evil Hand sneered, and an evil halo spread out from his body. The tentacles, shredded by the halo, reformed, but they were no longer in the shape of tentacles. Instead, they were evil hands with a much weaker aura. Hundreds of evil hands surrounded Yi Chun and attacked Yi Chun. Chickens and dogs, I'll let you witness my true strength. The sword aura on Yi Chun's body sword. All the evil hands attacking Yi Chun were chopped into nothingness by this frightening sword aura before they could even get close. At the same time, Yi Chun raised the iron blood silver blue sword and slashed down. Puchi, a dark green sword curtain, seemed as if it would pierce through the sky. Compared to before, the current merciless water and fire was much more powerful. At this moment, Yi Chun was truly using the power of the first layer of life and death realm. Rumble. The earth shook. Be it gold thug, evil hand, or the insects that were trying their best to resist his illusion, they were all sent flying. Their bodies shattered in the air, blood mist filling the air. Chapter 990. This is the first layer of life and death realm. Being inside the evil god enchantment didn't mean that Tian Xie was ignorant of what was happening outside. His eyes seemed to be connected to the vague shadow above the enchantment. Whatever the shadow could see, he could also see. When Yi Chen's aura soared and shattered the bodies of Gold Fiend and the other two, Tian Xie was startled inwardly. Even his unsealing movements seemed to be somewhat affected. Life and death realm had a total of 9 layers. With each layer, the purity of one's Zhen Yuan would increase by a large margin. This was not only an increase in one's battle power, but also in the level of one's power. It was like the difference between water and mercury. As an expert of evil spirit race, Tian Xie himself was also a great expert of life and death realm. However, due to the suppression of Elysium, he could only exert his strength to the 4th layer. Moreover, his origin had suffered quite a bit of damage. Cracks had appeared on his Dao gate, which led to it being sealed. He had only managed to break free in recent days. After countless years, his aura had been branded with Elysium's aura, and he had also possessed Nirvana, Demon Emperor's body. Thus, Elysium's suppression on him wasn't as strong as before. However, only his origin had recovered, and his realm was still suppressed by 2 layers. At present, he was merely at the unharmed 4th layer of life and death realm. Moreover, since he had yet to familiarize himself with Nirvana, Demon Emperor's body, he could only display 70 to 80% of his battle power. Therefore, after breaking free, Tian Xie didn't dare to immediately start a massacre and slaughter the kings of Elysium. He knew that with his current strength, it was still not enough for him to jump around. However, the fact that Yi Chun had reached the first sky of life and death realm made him feel extremely uneasy. The reason why the evil spirit race and the demons sealed the entrance of Elysium was to limit the lifespan of Elysium's kings to 1,000 years, making it impossible for them to increase their cultivation base. However, in every generation, a peerless character would appear in Elysium. These peerless characters could break through the shackles and cultivate to the 1st or even the 2nd layer of life and death realm, greatly increasing their battle power and energy recovery speed, allowing them to contend with 5th layer life and death realm experts. These people's achievements in martial arts and martial would be extremely frightening even in the outside world, not to mention the small Elysium. Otherwise, how could they fight above their realm? They had been fighting for so many years without gaining the upper hand. Yi Chun had entered the first sky of life and death realm. Didn't this mean that he was this era's peerless character and had the potential to turn the situation around? With his current first sky of life and death realm, I'm afraid his strength is not below mine. It seems like only by undoing the seal and letting Lord Evil Wind escape can we thoroughly deal with him together. Lord Evil Wind inside the Blood Seal was even stronger than him. He was a 7th sky of life and death realm expert. Even if his realm was suppressed by Elysium, he could still erupt with the battle power of a 5th sky of life and death realm expert. However, it was unknown how much power he had left after being sealed for 10,000 years. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Tian Xie concentrated even more on condensing symbols and eroding the blood seal. Outside the evil god enchantment, Gold Thug, Thousand Bugs, and Evil Hand were chopped into pieces by Yi Chen's sword. Before the blood mist could disperse, it was caught up by the domineering green radiance, turning into nothingness. Undead Evil River. Suddenly, a river of evil energy condensed from the surrounding mist and rushed over, drowning the green light and wrapping a blurry dark golden shadow inside. It was Gold Thug. Gold Thug's cultivation base was much denser than Thousand Bugs and Evil Hand. At the crucial moment, he used an evil art, drawing the boundless evil power from the fog to replenish himself. Demonic Flower, absorb. Seeing this, Demon Flower Emperor waved his palm, and a black demonic flower rapidly enlarged, intercepting the evil river. The frightening evil power poured into the demonic flower, which couldn't absorb so much evil power in a short time. Thus, it couldn't help but expand from the size of a house to the size of a mountain. 8 trigrams extermination. Yi Chen's eyes were ice cold as he raised his left index and middle fingers, pointing at Gold Thug. Buzz! The Sky Scorpio sword unsheathed itself and divided into 8, which then turned into 64, forming an 8 trigram sword array filled with the aura of extermination. It swept toward Gold Thug, not giving him any chance. Gold Thug was extremely weak at this moment, although he had a portion of the evil power to replenish himself. How could he convert it all into his own power? He was instantly swept into the 8 trigram sword array and turned into nothingness. Clang! Returning the Sky Scorpio sword to its sheath, Yi Chen looked at the evil god enchantment. Let me try out this enchantment's defense first. The demonic flower had absorbed too much evil power. The demon flower emperor's left and right hands each held a demonic light sphere. The sphere on his right hand had already reached 1 meter in diameter. Its powerful demonic ripples even caused the surrounding fog to disperse. With a swish, the demon flower emperor's right hand shot out, and the demonic light sphere shot toward the evil god enchantment. Inside the evil god enchantment, Tian Xie coldly watched and snorted inwardly. As long as the upper-grade evil power crystal's energy hasn't been exhausted, even if your strength had doubled, you still wouldn't be able to break the evil god enchantment. Evil power crystals were on the same level as Zhenyuan crystals. Low-rank ones could only be easily condensed by evil spirit kings at the first sky of life and death realm. Mid-rank ones would need to be at the 4th sky of life and death realm, while top-rank ones would need to be at the 7th sky of life and death realm. Any top-rank evil power crystal contained an astonishing evil power, and its quality was extremely high. Although the evil god enchantment that used top-rank evil power crystals might not necessarily need to be at the 7th sky of life and death realm to be broken, it would at least need to be at the 5th sky of life and death realm. As expected, when the demonic light sphere struck the evil god enchantment, apart from creating a small ripple, it didn't shake the enchantment in the slightest. The demon flower emperor's complexion remained unchanged. Just as she threw out the demonic light sphere in her right hand, the one in her left hand followed right after. At the same time, a new demonic light sphere appeared in her right hand. Since she couldn't break the evil god enchantment in one strike, the demon flower emperor didn't believe that 10 or even 100 strikes wouldn't have the same effect. In any case, these demonic light spheres were transformed from the evil power, and they seemed to be endless. Her own consumption wasn't that great, and she could maintain it for a very long time. Mysterious Tao, heaven and earth reversal. Xianhou also knew that this was a crucial moment. If they couldn't break the evil god enchantment before the blood seal was lifted, they would have to face 2 powerful enemies. Her hands rapidly formed seals, and an even larger ancient gate appeared, covering the indistinct image above the evil god enchantment. That indistinct image didn't have any consciousness, and allowed the ancient gate to envelop it. Buzz! After being struck by the demonic light sphere dozens of times, the evil god enchantment, which was still as stable as Mount Tai, suddenly started to tremble. The mirror-like surface of the enchantment began to distort at an astonishing frequency. You actually want to reverse the structure of the evil god enchantment. Tianxia's anger soared to the sky. Runes condensed in his right hand, eroding the blood seal, while his left hand shot out an evil art, pouring it into the indistinct image above the enchantment. You disobeyed me, so you must die. The indistinct image's body lightly trembled, and the ancient gate shattered into thousands of pieces. The reversal power also disappeared. Puff! The ancient gate, which was connected to their minds, shattered. Xianhou instantly spat out a mouthful of blood, and her face turned pale. This enchantment's power is too strong. Unless I can reach the next level, I won't be able to shake it. Xianhou sat cross-legged on the ground, and her aura surged. Devil's flower, devour heaven and earth. The demon flower emperor was truly enraged. He no longer used demonic light spheres to attack the evil god enchantment. Instead, he sent the devil's flower over, intending to use it to absorb the enchantment's power. Overestimating yourself. The indistinct image couldn't attack, but that didn't mean it would passively take a beating. The moment the devil's flower flew over, it was torn into two. Evil flames burned, and the devil's flower turned into ashes. Seniors, leave the rest to me. In front of absolute defense, only absolute power could break it. Of course, if one's technique reached an earth-shattering level, they could also break it. Unfortunately, powerful techniques also needed time to accumulate. Xianhou wasn't old, and it was already very rare for her to have such achievements. In reality, Yichun was very clear that although Xuanhou's battle power was inferior to his, in terms of achievements, she wasn't inferior to him by much. The main reason was that the profound Tao was all-encompassing and involved too many things. It consumed a lot of energy. If Xianhou was like him and walked the path of pure martial arts, her battle power would definitely be much higher than now. Everyone had their own pursuits. Yichun pursued the pinnacle of the martial Tao and the pinnacle of the sword Tao. As for Xianhou, her pursuits were probably the profound mysteries of heaven and earth. The Earth Fiend sword art had long been executed. The reason why Yichun didn't make a move earlier was because he was absorbing the Earth Origin Baneful Qi. The more Earth Origin Baneful Qi the Earth Fiend sword art contained, the stronger its might would be. There wasn't much time left. Yichun had to break the enchantment in one sword strike and interrupt the opponent's unsealing action. Strands, strands, strands. The huge purple sword that entered the ground was rapidly dyed black. Boundless Earth Origin Baneful Qi surged over from all directions, rushing into the huge black sword. I wonder how powerful the Earth Fiend sword art's ultimate might is. With their minds connected, Yichun could feel that the current black sword's might was several times stronger than when it was used against Su King. Furthermore, it was still increasing rapidly. What is he doing? Tianxia sensed something was wrong. It's about time. When the huge black sword started to distort and the energy started to become unstable, Yichun made a prompt decision and pushed the huge black sword out of the ground. Go! With a finger movement, the huge black sword carried boundless baneful qi and attacked the heretical god barrier. With a pull, the blurry figure on the heretical god barrier suddenly stretched out his right hand and sent a palm strike at the huge black sword. However, the heretical god barrier's power was mostly used for defense. The blurry figure could only use less than 10% of its power. How could it contend against the huge black sword? His palm was directly destroyed by the sword. Pooh! In the next moment, the huge black sword pierced through the heretical god barrier and shot towards Tianxia. Boom! At this moment, the blood seal that had been corroded by 4/5 of the heretical god barrier suddenly broke. A palm that was completely condensed from evil energy grabbed the huge black sword. Tianxia, I'll have to trouble you. A sinister voice rang out. Chapter 991. It can actually grab the Earth Fiend sword condensed from the Earth Fiend sword art. Yichun's brows couldn't help but crease. The fact that the gigantic Earth Fiend sword could break through the heretic god barrier was within his expectations. After all, The heretic god barrier had been bombarded by the devil flower sovereign before, and its structure had been distorted by the mysterious empress with her profound Tao. It seemed to be undamaged, but there were already signs of instability. Otherwise, there would be no need for the evil spirit race experts who had occupied the Terminator Demon Emperor's body to activate the blurry phantom image above the heretic god barrier. As for his Earth Fiend sword art, it had absorbed enough Earth Fiend evil chi, and its might had reached a level that even he couldn't control. Breaking the enchantment with one strike was naturally a matter of course. However, the evil power condensed into a huge hand grabbing the Earth Fiend sword was beyond his expectations. Although the Earth Fiend sword had already consumed a large amount of energy to shatter the vague hand and penetrate the evil god enchantment, grabbing and blocking were not on the same level. Grabbing meant that it still had energy left, while blocking meant that it had gone all out. Clang! Yichen's soul power was not something that ordinary people could compare with after all. With a thought, the Earth Fiend huge sword was like a sharp saw that could cut open mountains and the ground. It sliced forward violently, and the huge hand formed by the evil power was cut in half, losing its control over the Earth Fiend huge sword. Not good. After the evil hand was cut in half, the remaining might of the Earth Fiend's sword could not be underestimated. It furiously slashed toward Tian Xie, and the incomparably frightening evil chi combined with the destructive sword intent could almost cut through a person's soul. However, Tian Xie was at the fourth layer of life and death realm. Even if he could only display 70 to 80% of his battle power in the Nirvana Demon Emperor's body, it was still not something Su King could compare to. His right hand suddenly clenched into a fist, heavily bombarding the Earth Fiend's sword with a biting cold evil chi. Clang! The Earth Fiend's sword was blasted away, and Tian Xie himself also retreated 10 steps with blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. I'm afraid we won't be able to resolve this peacefully today. Yi Chun sighed inwardly as the Earth Fiend gigantic sword entered the ground. Not to mention the evil spirit powerhouse that was about to escape, just the person who had occupied the Nirvana Demon Emperor's body was not someone who could be easily defeated. The other party's punch, just now, was extremely domineering, filled with killing intent and evil. It was clearly an extremely powerful martial art. However, this martial art was unique to the evil spirit race. It was completely different from the martial arts of Elysium. Crackle. Bang. In this short instant, the blood seal first shattered into thousands of pieces, then turned into nothingness. A ferocious tiger coming out of its cage, and the gates of hell opened, erupted like a volcano. The frightening movement caused the entire True Water Palace ruins to tremble. The outer seal flickered, and from time to time, some of the weaker seals dissipated into thin air, blown away by the frightening evil wind. If not for the seal formed by countless Yuan characters, a huge hole would have appeared in the energy barrier of the True Water Palace ruins, causing endless seawater to pour in. At that time, even if Yi Chun and the rest could travel through the void, they would still suffer some injuries. Ha ha! The Yin Wind Demonic Emperor have finally escaped. Who in the world can be my opponent? The fierce, evil wind rotated and compressed at high speed, condensing into a human figure. This person was tall, wearing a blue Taoist robe. Although he was not young, looking to be in his 50s or 60s, he gave people a very strange temperament, as if he was a Taoist expert. However, his eyes ruined the whole feeling. A trace of a mysterious gaze drifted around, and anyone who was looked at by him would feel as if they were being stared at by a poisonous snake, unable to sleep at night. Welcome, Lord Yin Wind. Tian Xie's face revealed a happy expression. From the momentum just now, even if the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor's strength was not even 30% of his peak, it was still much stronger than him. One day, he would obtain a treasure to replenish his essence chi, and his strength would definitely reach the peak. As long as a peerless figure like the Yuan Emperor did not appear, he would be invincible in the world. Sure enough, True Water Emperor's body was already possessed by an evil spirit race's expert. The speaker was Yuan Emperor. Although the painting was in his storage ring, Yuan Emperor and Yi Qin's minds were connected. What Yi Qin could see, Yuan Emperor could also see. At this moment, seeing the other's appearance, Yuan Emperor's voice resounded in Yi Qin's mind, sighing incessantly. Since this person has already possessed True Water Emperor's body, who sealed him, and even buried the entire True Water Palace's king, leading to the destruction of True Water Palace? Yi Qin was puzzled. Yuan Emperor said, although the nature of that blood seal was different from True Water Emperor's Blue Ocean seal, upon careful observation, it was actually a change in the nature of the same form. Yi Qin's mind was clear, and he suddenly said, so, it seems that the one who sealed the Wind demonic emperor was True Water Emperor himself. Although True Water Emperor's body was possessed, it was only his body, and his soul still had its own consciousness. He knew that his consciousness would be devoured by the Wind demonic emperor, so in order to avoid harming Elysium, he used a method to seal himself. The reason why he didn't use his own Blue Ocean seal was probably because it was closely related to him, and he was afraid that it wouldn't be able to trap him. Therefore, he used an extremely sinister seal, sealing himself at the cost of many True Water Palace's king. That should be the case. Yi Qin's reasoning was the same as Yuan Emperor's. Knowing the truth of the matter, Yi Qin was filled with emotion. What True Water Emperor did was undoubtedly sacrificing himself for the greater good. He sealed himself at the cost of the destruction of True Water Palace, so that Elysium could avoid disaster. Although such an act was too cruel and ruthless for the people of True Water Palace, it was a great concern for the people of the world. Not only True Water Emperor, but also countless emperors throughout the ages would rather sacrifice themselves to protect everything they wanted to protect for Elysium and the people of the world. Among them, there were high and low achievements, but they were all great. It was because of their existence that Elysium could survive to this day and not be enslaved by foreign races. Sigh. In fact, he didn't have to do this. With my strength back then, I was worried about not having a worthy opponent. How could I be afraid of a mere Wind demonic emperor? For a peerless character like Yuan Emperor, if he couldn't leave Elysium, the stronger the enemy, the stronger his battle intent would be. In the later stages of his life, in order to find an opponent, he had barged into death's door dozens of times. Each time, he was able to escape unscathed. Even the most serious time, he only suffered a light injury. Nobody knew what True Water Emperor was thinking at that time. Perhaps he thought that Yuan Emperor shouldn't have been put in danger. If Yuan Emperor lost, he would at most die, but if Elysium lost, it would be beyond redemption. Peerless characters of every generation seemed to involve luck. Once luck was lost, it would be hard to condense again in a short period of time, making it impossible for a new peerless character to appear. First Sky of Life and Death Realm. It seems like you're the top warrior of this generation of Elysium. If I kill you, Elysium will not have the power to fight anymore. Wind demonic emperor sensed Yi Qin's cultivation base, and after a slight shock, his face turned into ecstasy. Back then, he was only able to possess True Water Emperor's body because the latter had forcefully barged into the path of death and suffered an injury to his soul. Otherwise, even if his strength was higher than True Water Emperor's, he wouldn't have been able to succeed. It should be known that possession was a double-edged sword. If he failed, he would die trying. After occupying the body of the Emperor of True Water, the Emperor of Wind hid himself for 10,000 years. He wanted to devour the soul of the Emperor of True Water so that his strength could reach a higher level. Then, he could fight against the primitive emperor who seemed to be more powerful than the Emperor of True Water. Unfortunately, at the critical moment, the soul of the Emperor of True Water came back to life and occupied the dominant position. He sealed himself for 15,000 years at the cost of blood. Now that he was free, the endless seal made him thirsty for battle. Even if his current strength was only 20 to 30% of his peak, the current Yi Qin didn't even have 1/5 of Yuan Emperor's strength. Killing him wouldn't be too difficult. Killing you will mean one less peerless expert in the great calamity of the foreign races. Not to mention that Wind Evil Emperor wanted to kill him, Yichen didn't intend to return empty-handed. Whether it was Tian Xie or Yin Wind, Evil Emperor, they were both targets he wanted to kill. He couldn't imagine what it would be like if his strength was restored to its peak. Instead of waiting for that day to come, it would be better to end it early. Good confidence. Unfortunately, confidence can't bring you victory. Tian Xie, don't do it. I'll fight him first. Yin Wind, Evil Emperor, wasn't a righteous person. He didn't let Tian Xie do it now, because he was confident that he could defeat Yi Chun. If he really couldn't defeat Yi Chun, it wouldn't be too late for him to take action. Saber. After saying this, the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor waved his right hand, and at the original location of the blood-colored seal, an evil weapon with dense evil chi broke out of the ground and fell into his hand. You're a swordsman, and I'm also a blade expert of the Evil Spirit clan. Today, I'll use my 100 battles evil saber to kill you. With the evil saber in his hand, the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor's body burst forth with an extremely evil and tyrannical saber force. Under the guidance of this saber force, his entire person seemed to have turned into a saber, an evil saber that could behead souls. Block my sword first, then we'll talk. Under the ground, a huge black sword shot out. The boundless earth Yuan evil chi was restrained by the destruction's sword intent and became extremely condensed. As soon as the sword was thrown out, the space was cut open, and a pitch-black crack appeared in the air. Chi. Under the stimulation of Yi Chen's soul power, the Earth Fiend huge sword was as fast as the aurora. Even with Yin Wind Evil Emperor's perception, he couldn't dodge it in an instant. Yin Wind Evil Emperor was shocked and angry at the same time. Previously, although he had grabbed the Earth Fiend huge sword, it was because the Earth Fiend huge sword had shattered the blurry phantom's palm and pierced through the evil god enchantment, which consumed more than half of its power. If he had known that the Earth Fiend huge sword was so powerful, he wouldn't have given Yi Chen any time to prepare his attack. Moon has waxing and waning. The Yin Wind Demonic Emperor let out a roar. He raised his evil blade with both hands and slashed at the Earth Fiend gigantic sword. The gray blade screen in the void evolved into a fragmented bright moon, which contained the transformation of Yin and Yang. The blade energy seemed fragmented, but was incomparably ferocious. It was like a person who was born with a disability and had been bullied with a twisted hatred in his heart. Chapter 992. Clang. The demonic saber and the earthly fiend gigantic sword collided with each other in the most violent manner. For a moment, sparks flew in all directions, forming a line, gushing and exploding in the strangest manner. It was as if the order of space had been disrupted. The transfer of power became bizarre and motley, and no one could even think of seeing the complete trajectory. Puff! A mouthful of cold blood spurted out, and the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor was sent flying backward by the huge Earth Fiend sword, and suddenly disappeared into the distant fog. The huge Earth Fiend sword paused for a moment, and then slashed forward at a speed several times faster than the opponent. Wherever it went, a thick sword mark appeared on the ground, and the fog was split apart. Anything that blocked this sword was torn apart in a destructive manner. Raging sea waves. Although the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor was sent flying, the moment he landed on the ground, he immediately raised his saber and attacked again. This time, although the saber energy was not as ferocious as the last time, it was more and more violent, like monstrous raging waves, unceasing. As a saber expert of the evil spirit race, the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor's research on techniques was very profound. The power of the Earth Fiend giant sword seemed to be invincible, but a part of it had already been offset by his most ferocious full moon, and the remaining power was less than 80% of its original power. It just happened to be continuous power, and the saber energy was stronger than the previous one. Clang, 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 clang. After the first saber hit the Earth Fiend giant sword, the Yin Wind Demonic Emperor immediately sent out the second saber. The third saber. The saber speed was getting faster and faster, as if there was no end, and in an instant, a total of 17 saber strikes hit the Earth Fiend giant sword. Bang! The 18th saber strike was sent out, and the Earth Fiend giant sword was sent flying, But the Wind demonic emperor was also not good. The first 17 saber strikes, he was not unscathed, but he knew that he could not retreat now. Once he retreated, the saber energy would be thwarted, and he would no longer be able to stop the advance of the Earth Fiend giant sword, and he would inevitably be pierced by the sword. After the Earth Fiend giant sword was sent flying, the Wind demonic emperor finally could not suppress the injury, and his arms exploded inch by inch, and a bloody hole appeared in his chest. It turned out that although the Earth Fiend giant sword failed to attack the body of the Wind demonic emperor, but the invincible sword energy had already passed to him. If it was not for the raging sea waves of the Wind demonic emperor and the continuous saber energy, this sword could have seriously injured the Wind demonic emperor. Good sword control technique. The Wind demonic emperor's face turned pale, and his eyes emitted a blazing, eerie, killing intent. Same here. To be honest, the Wind demonic emperor's saber art wasn't anything special. Although it had a profound meaning and was incomparably tyrannical, it hadn't been fully mastered yet. It could only be used to scare those whose martial arts realm was lower than his. However, the Wind demonic emperor's evil energy was powerful, and his evil was also incomparably mysterious. He was able to unleash this saber art to an extremely ferocious level. I just don't know if he'll be able to unleash such a sword strike again. How could the Wind demonic emperor not see that this imperial sword technique needed to absorb the Earth origin evil chi underground? If there was no Earth origin evil chi, he could easily break this move with a casual slash. And since he knew the weakness of this sword technique, how could he give Yi Chen the opportunity to absorb the Earth origin evil chi? Let's wait and see. Yi Chen reached out his hand, and the huge purple sword disintegrated in the air, turning into a purple longsword and falling into his hand. The reason why he was able to injure the Wind demonic emperor with the Earth Fiend sword technique was because the Wind demonic emperor didn't understand the Earth Fiend sword technique. But now that the Wind demonic emperor knew the weakness of the Earth Fiend sword technique, he obviously wouldn't give him the opportunity to accumulate power. It should be known that the reason why he could injure Su King with this move was because Su King's battle strength was inferior to his. He could use the Earth Fiend sword technique to absorb the Earth origin evil chi while fighting. However, the Wind demonic emperor wasn't someone that could be compared to Su King. Judging from the fact that the Wind demonic emperor could barely resist the Earth Fiend sword technique, his battle strength was several times higher than Su King's. Without the Sky Scorpio sword, Yi Chen was absolutely not the Wind demonic emperor's opponent. Once he used the Earth Fiend sword technique to absorb the Earth origin evil chi, the Wind demonic emperor would definitely heavily injure or even kill him. At that time, the Earth Fiend sword technique would collapse by itself, unless he had a second supreme greatsword. After all, how could the Iron Blood Silver Blue sword compare to a supreme greatsword? Therefore, only with the Sky Scorpio sword in his hand could Yi Chen have the power to fight. As for the Earth Fiend sword technique performed by the Sky Scorpio sword, he naturally couldn't use it. The Earth Fiend sword technique performed by the Iron Blood Silver Blue sword was useless. Good. Let's see how you will receive my moon has imperfection this time. The Wind demonic emperor roared. His body turned into a blade light, and the blade followed him. The mournful gray blade light formed a broken moon between the two, and the gap was facing Yi Chen's direction. Facing the Wind demonic emperor's brutal blade, Yi Chen's eyes turned solemn, but his hands weren't slow. No, his hands' movements had reached the pinnacle. Obviously, it was the Wind demonic emperor who attacked first, but when the blade light swept over, it became Yi Chen who attacked first, directly attacking the gap of the blade light. Clang! As the blade and sword collided, a dark green flame burst out, accompanied by an incomparably soft and sharp aura. Yi Chen's merciless water and fire was forcibly twisted into strands by the opponent's blade light, and the sword energy couldn't advance even an inch. As for himself, blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth, and he had to retreat 8 steps before he could neutralize the blade energy. The reason why the Wind demonic emperor couldn't follow up with another attack was not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't, because he had also taken 3 steps back. This sword attack of Yi Chun contained the sword energy of the fusion of water and fire, which had a destructive explosive power. The realm of his sword art was unimaginably high, but what really shocked him wasn't Yi Chun's sword art. After all, no matter how powerful his sword art was, if the foundation was too weak, it would be useless. What shocked him was that he was the one who attacked first. But in the end, he was the one who attacked first. Yi Chun didn't wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. Although the opponent's blade energy shook his blood and chi, it still couldn't hurt him. And with the realm of no sword in hand and no sword in heart, it was enough to attack first, so that the opponent's blade energy could only be displayed at 70 to 80%. In other words, the attack power of Yi Chun was actually a lot weaker than that of the Wind demonic emperor. The reason why he could force the Wind demonic emperor to retreat 3 steps with 1 strike was because of the high realm of his sword art. Sometimes a high attack power might not be able to display all of it. Damn, take my raging sea waves again. The Wind demonic emperor hated the experts of Elysium very much. These people's foundation was not as good as his. But for some reason, each of them had a very high realm of martial arts. When he took over the body of Emperor Truewater, he had a terrible battle with him. But at that time, Emperor Truewater's soul was injured, and his combat power could only be displayed at most 80%. Originally, the Wind demonic emperor thought that he could easily injure Emperor Truewater again and then take over the body of Emperor Truewater. Unexpectedly, although Emperor Truewater's combat power was not as good as his, but with his high realm of martial arts, he fought with him for a day and a night. Finally, he was exhausted and lost the power to resist, which was a shame for him. The most humiliating thing was that Emperor Truewater lost the power to resist, and he was also seriously injured. Otherwise, he would not have been dormant for 10,000 years and wasted so much time. Now, Yi Chun's foundation was much worse than that of Emperor Truewater, and his realm of martial arts was far less than that of Emperor Truewater, but in terms of sword art, he had reached that level, and even surpassed it. The moon's waxing and waning focused on ferocity and strength. The raging sea waves, in terms of ferocity, were not as ferocious as the moon's waxing and waning, but in terms of continuous blade energy, it was more than 10 times that of the moon's waxing and waning. Wind demonic emperor was afraid of Yi Chun's realm of sword art, so he planned to use speed to drown Yi Chun with wave after wave of blade energy. He did not believe that Yi Chun could break the raging sea waves cleanly. In the distance, Xianhou and Demon Flower Emperor were adjusting their breathing while watching the battle. At the same time, they were on guard against Tianxia. Once Tianxia made a move, they would definitely join the battle. They were very clear in their hearts that this was the decisive battle between Wind demonic emperor and Yi Chun. If they rashly made a move, not only would they weaken Yi Chun's momentum, but they would also be more of a help. Any casual strike of Wind demonic emperor could seriously injure them. When the difference in combat strength was too great, skills and so on were useless. Seeing the boundless blade energy slashing towards Yi Chun, Demon Flower Emperor and Xianhou couldn't help feeling their hearts tighten. It was not that they did not trust Yi Chun, but the Wind demonic emperor was not an ordinary person. This was a demon that had once wreaked havoc in Elysium. If the Wind demonic emperor was a raging wave, then Yi Chun was a small boat in this raging wave. Although he relied on his skills to prevent the small boat from being submerged, this situation was too dangerous. If he was the slightest bit careless, the boat would be destroyed and he would die. Such a pity, a peerless character. If you want to blame something, blame yourself for not having enough time. Tianxia's fear of Yi Chun was even greater than that of the Wind demonic emperor. After devouring the Nirvana demon emperor's soul, he had obtained the majority of the Nirvana demon emperor's memories. Naturally, he knew everything about Yi Chun. He had to admit that if given enough time, Yi Chun's radiance would be enough to illuminate the past and present. Even those peerless characters who had died might not be able to catch up to him. The evil, berserk, world-beheading blade energy swept over, but Yi Qin's expression didn't change. Perhaps, to him, fighting had already become his life. Stepping onto the peak of the martial Tao, the peak of the sword Tao, was his mission. Even if the heavens fell and the earth split apart, or the doomsday descended, he wouldn't panic. Swish! The Sky Scorpio sword struck out, and an astonishing scene occurred. Yi Qin's body was like a phantom. As soon as the sword struck out, countless figures appeared. Each of Yi Qin's movements were different. They either leaped up, turned sideways, lowered their center of gravity, or flashed. In an instant, countless sword lights rushed into the raging sea of blade energy. Swish! The boundless blade energy shattered, and the numerous Yi Qins merged back into one. How is this possible? The Yin Wind demonic emperor forgot to continue attacking. The shock that Yi Qin had brought him went straight to his soul. As the one who had started the raging sea, he was very clear that each of Yi Qin's sword attacks was aimed at the weak points of the raging sea. The sky-high waves seemed unstoppable, but they contained countless changes in power. In a split second, Yi Qin had destroyed all the power within them. Without the support of power, the sky-high waves instantly collapsed. Although their remaining momentum was still fierce and unstoppable, they had already lost their momentum. Chapter 993. With a sword in one's heart, it was hard to avoid mistakes, because the human heart was not perfect. Without a sword in one's heart, one would be able to achieve true precision and perfection. Just like how you cared about something, but if you cared about it too much, you would lose your original judgment. Being without a sword in one's heart didn't mean giving up on the sword. It was just fusing the sword into one's blood and spirit, becoming a part of oneself. Originally, Yi Qin had only comprehended the state of being without a sword in one's heart, but under the pressure of Yin Wind, demonic emperor, Yi Qin's body instinctively moved. In other words, taking out the sword had already become his instinct, without the need to think in his heart. At this moment, the thoughts in his heart could no longer keep up with Yi Qin's instinct. Raging Evil Chop. Yin Wind, demonic emperor's famous blade art was the Yin Wind 6 spells, and this was the third style. Compared to Full Moon, this move was not only brutal, but also had a lawless arrogance. Compared to Raging Sea Waves, this move's violence was purer and more direct. The Yin Wind 6 spells could be said to be the combination of 6 sets of blade arts, and each style was the strongest move of the set. Boom! Amidst the earth-shattering noise, a sharp saber light extended out. The farther the distance, the longer the saber light became. It seemed like it could be stretched infinitely, and with the most violent manner, it slashed at the enemy. Since the move was not exquisite enough, then he would use absolute blade energy to crush the opponent. Guarding sword like a mountain, Yi Qin did not blindly attack. The opponent's blade energy had already reached the point of ignoring the flaws. Even if he could hit the flaws, the remaining blade energy would be enough to heavily injure him. Holding the Sky Scorpio sword with both of his hands, Yi Qin let out a low roar. His entire body's sword energy soared as he fiercely stabbed the sword into the ground. In the next moment, the berserk sword energy, with Yi Qin as the center, erupted upwards. Because the sword energy erupted too fast, when it reached the highest point, it slowed down again, causing a large amount of sword energy to stack up, continuously compressing and solidifying, eventually condensing into a towering mountain phantom. The cliff was overflowing with greenery. Kacha! The sharp blade light fiercely slashed on the illusory mountain peak, splashing up countless illusory stones. Compared to real stones, these illusory stones were many times harder. Even steel and iron couldn't compare. After this strike, although the illusory sword-shaped mountain peak was covered with cracks, it wasn't cut into two. Defensive sword move. It wasn't that the Yin Wind demonic emperor hadn't seen defensive sword moves before, but those were all old antiques who had lived for thousands of years. His evil spirit race had experts who had created defensive sword moves, but how old was Yi Qin? Yi Qin's blood and qi were boiling, but he didn't move at all. This move was a defensive sword move that he had created in the past year. and it contained both earth profound and wood profound. For a sword artist, it was good to be aggressive, but it didn't mean that he could only attack and not defend. When there was a huge difference in strength between him and the enemy, a defensive sword move was the only chance to turn the situation around, because only by staying alive could he counterattack. Let's see how many of my attacks you can block. The Wind demonic emperor no longer wasted his energy on being surprised. There was only one thought left in his mind, and that was to kill Yichun. The sharp blade light was like a violent storm, crazily slashing towards the illusory mountain peak. Every time it slashed, it would expand the cracks on it, and even if Yichun used all his strength to repair the cracks, he still couldn't offset this destructive speed. Break for me. Seeing that the illusory mountain peak was about to collapse, the Wind demonic emperor's evil force surged, and he slashed out the fourth move of the Wind art, Wind Wavebreaker. In silence, the illusory mountain peak was split into two, and the bone-piercing blade light was like a cold wind sweeping over the sea, sweeping towards Yichun. This was the Wind demonic emperor's killing move, and it was also the moment for Yichun to counterattack. The moment the illusory mountain peak was shattered, Yichun's killing move had already finished accumulating power. He pulled out the Sky Scorpio sword from the ground, and with a slanted slash, a dazzling light burst out. The moment the light burst out, the space within several meters suddenly became still. The blade energy that the Wind demonic emperor had sent out was blurry like a cold wind, but after the space became still, the cold wind rapidly condensed, turning into a transparent, gray blade light that was as thin as a cicada's wing. Just like that, it froze in front of Yichun. At the same time, Yichun's Sky Scorpio sword slowly pierced towards the Wind demonic emperor. The light it emitted was distorted, as if it had entered a kaleidoscope. The third move of the heaven-shattering sword arts, momentary brilliance. No! The Wind demonic emperor roared inwardly. He could feel that the closer he got to the tip of Yichun's sword, the greater the void pressure he felt. This void pressure did not only affect his outer appearance, but also his thoughts. From the inside to the outside, he couldn't move a single inch. His blood stopped flowing, Zhan Yuan stopped flowing, and even the most basic particles of flesh and blood stopped moving. As if a year had passed, or just a moment, Yichun's Sky Scorpio sword slowly sank into the Wind demonic emperor's heart. In the next moment, the space returned to normal, and Yichun's movement was released. The tip of the sword came out of the Wind demonic emperor's back, creating a bloody hole on his chest and back. At the same time, the gray-color blade light in the void cut through Yichun's left shoulder. The blood was frozen like ice, and not a single drop of blood splashed out. Pulling out the sword, Yichun's figure flashed, and he retreated. Along the way, he vomited several mouthfuls of blood. This blood was brimming with vitality and contained rich life Yuan Qi. What was life Yuan Qi? Specifically speaking, it was lifespan. After vomiting several mouthfuls of blood filled with life Yuan Qi, Yichun didn't know how many years of lifespan he had lost. At least, he felt that something was missing. Wah! Standing still, the Wind demonic emperor wanted to vomit blood, but he found that he couldn't vomit anything. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels, as well as his chest bones, were all devoured by this sword. The Wind demonic emperor's eyes were filled with shock and anger, and there was a vague fear that he couldn't get rid of. This sword had brought him too much of a threat. Under this sword, at least 1/3 of the evil power in his body had been annihilated. Countless sword chi was roaming inside his body, and he couldn't get rid of it in a short time. He could only use his own evil power to resist. How could there be such a fast sword? I couldn't even see the process. Demon Flower Emperor sucked in a breath of cold air. She wasn't the Wind demonic emperor, and from her angle, she didn't see the space freeze. She only saw a dazzling light flash, so fast that she thought she was hallucinating. This is the advanced use of space profound. Xuanho's eyes had never been so serious. That flash of image kept appearing in her mind, and she tried to analyze it. What sort of art is this? Tianxia's nerves were stretched taut. That flash was too short, and he couldn't react at all. He only knew that after Yi Chen's defense was broken, the two separated again. Tian Xie was heavily injured, and Yi Chen lost an arm. The hand holding the sky, Scorpio, sword faintly trembled as he panted heavily. That sword strike, just now, was his greatest achievement in the past year. It was called Split Second of Glory. Split Moment of Glory contained the space profound, but it wasn't perfect, nor was it great completion. It was still at 70% space profound. The higher the level of space profound, the harder it was to progress, as if it had reached a bottleneck. In the past, Yi Chen thought that the sword move created with 70% space profound couldn't surpass the sword move created with 2 great completion profounds. However, he soon realized that he was wrong. From the very beginning, he had made a mistake. Space profound was vast and profound, and no other profounds could compare to it. Without exaggerating, an ordinary profound couldn't even compare to 1/10 of it. The reason why the sword move he created couldn't keep up with his progress was because of the problem of application. Space profound was hard to comprehend, and application was even harder. The first style of heaven-shattering sword arts, bewitching mirror-shattering, and the second style, orbital slaughter, could only be considered low-level application. It was the most superficial understanding, just like how one would think of a golden mountain as an ordinary mountain. Therefore, although they were both 70% profound, Split Moment of Glory was 10 times more exquisite than the second style of heaven-shattering sword arts, orbital slaughter. The two simply weren't on the same level. As he dug deeper into the space profound, Yi Chen vaguely felt that for extreme Emperor space, profound most likely hadn't reached great completion, perhaps only at 80%. Yi Chen thought that for extreme Emperor space profound had reached great completion, or else he wouldn't have been able to form the foundation of space profound. Space profound contains all kinds of energy profounds. This is an inexhaustible mountain of gold. Even if I only know space profound in this life, I will still be able to advance. Yi Chen sighed inwardly. Regarding Split Moment of Glory, Yi Chen was very satisfied. However, he also knew that it was just in its embryonic form, and its effective range was very small, only several zhang. Even so, he had already suffered a huge backlash. He could use the low-level application of Space Profound as many times as he wanted, but the backlash from Split Moment of Glory wasn't something ordinary people could endure, because the price of the backlash was the loss of their life. It was just like a mortal using the power of a god, causing a backlash. The reason why he didn't use Split Moment of Glory to deal with the Yin demonic emperor was precisely because of the problem of effective range. The distance between the two was too far, and the frozen space effect of Split Moment of Glory couldn't affect the Yin demonic emperor. The battle between the two was too fast, and there was no way for Yi Chen to successfully use Split Moment of Glory. Therefore, Yi Chen could only first use defensive sword like a mountain to turn from offense to defense, and prepare to use Split Moment of Glory. High-level application. Hearing Xuanho's words, the Demon Flower Emperor didn't quite understand. In terms of martial arts realm, she was countless times worse than Xuanho. Xuanho explained, time and space are both supreme profounds, and have power close to the rules. Therefore, it is very difficult to use them. Low-level application only involves the appearance, while high-level application involves the operation of the rules. Yi Chen's sword just now caused space to stand still, violating the operation of the rules. Therefore, the Yin demonic emperor couldn't resist at all. However, he also lost a lot of his life, which is the price of violating the rules. Involving the operation of the rules, the Demon Flower Emperor exclaimed in surprise. Time and space profound, you don't need to fully comprehend it to be able to interfere with the rules. Other ordinary profound can also interfere with the rules slightly after reaching perfection. However, under normal circumstances, many people have reached perfection in their profound, but they haven't used this profound to the limit, so they can't interfere with the rules. In other words, comprehending the profound is still just the foundation. The key lies in the application. Chapter 994. heaven abandoning earth. Seeing that the Wind demonic emperor was heavily injured and was trying his best to resist the destructive sword chi in his body, Tian Xie couldn't help but roar and claw at Yichun, who was recovering his breath. This claw was not his own martial art, but heaven-abandoning claw from Qi Tiandi. The evil spirit race's martial arts research was far from the human race's. Their strength came from all kinds of unimaginable evil arts. Unfortunately, this was Elysium, where the might of evil arts was greatly reduced. Moreover, his own martial art was barely passable. Compared to heaven-abandoning claw, the difference was like heaven and earth. Heaven-abandoning earth was the third style of heaven-abandoning claw. With one claw, heaven and earth were separated. The sharp and overbearing claw energy was like the claw of a demon god, tearing at Yichun. Despicable. The demon flower emperor swung his hand and shot out a demonic light ball, blasting at the claw energy. Puff! Outside of the claw energy, there was a layer of invisible astral chi, which could deflect any attack. Before the demonic light ball could approach, it was deflected to the side by the invisible astral chi, disintegrating in the air. However, the claw energy also slightly deviated. Just as the claw energy was about to hit Yichun, a mirror suddenly appeared in front of Yichun. The splendor of the mirror surged, and a five-colored light beam shot at the sharp claw energy. This move was called Realm Splendor, which could gather spatial power to attack. It was Xuanho's supreme martial art. Unfortunately, the difference in power between the two was too big. If the five-colored light beam was compared to a small stream, then the sharp claw energy was like a whirlwind. Walala! The five-colored light beam was torn apart, and the mirror was shattered. The claw energy, which had been blurred, still had more than half of its power. It enveloped Yi Chen's body, waiting for a single claw to crush him into a bloody mist. However, with this delay, Yi Chen had already finished adjusting his breath and calmed the Zhen Yuan turbulence caused by the law backlash. With a thrust of the sky, Scorpio sword, the claw energy exploded in the air. Damn it! Tian Xie was very unwilling to lose such a rare opportunity. He punched at Yi Chen again. This punch was the second style of the heaven-abandoning claw, like seal. It looked like a fist art, but it was still a claw art. It was just that the claw energy was contained in the fist. Once it hit the enemy, the claw energy would explode with several times the power. Since he had already returned to normal, how could Yi Chen be afraid of him? The sky Scorpio, sword in his hand, vibrated at a frequency invisible to the naked eye. With a swish, a sword light streaked across the sky. The moment Tian Xie's claw energy made contact with the sword light, it immediately exploded, as if a bomb was detonated prematurely. Yi Chen, you keep Tian Xie busy. I will try to see if I can seal the Wind demonic emperor again. At this time, Xuanho's voice followed the spatial fluctuations and entered Yi Chen's ears. I'm afraid it won't be easy to seal him again. Yi Chen knitted his brows. He is heavily injured, and your sword chi is wreaking havoc in his body. If he wants to recover, he has to first get rid of the sword chi, and then absorb the evil energy in the surroundings to replenish himself. I have already arranged a formation underground. Once activated, it can trap him in the formation, consume his energy, and finally seal him. As for the success rate, 50-50. Xianhou explained. All right, 50% chance was not small. This Wind demonic emperor was not someone that could be killed easily. His momentary glory couldn't be used frequently either. If not for Demon Flower Emperor and Xianhou intercepting Tian Xie's attack, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Therefore, sealing the Wind demonic emperor was the best choice, and also the only choice. Heaven and Earth demon subduing formation. Seeing that Yi Chen had agreed, Xianhou, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, formed a seal with her hands and slammed them on the ground. Rumble. 8 rectangular stones rose up from the flat stone ground. On the surface of the stones, they were engraved with colorful runes. The 8 rectangular stones formed an 8 trigram formation, sealing the Wind demonic emperor within. Suddenly, the Wind demonic emperor's surroundings turned chaotic. It was as if he had entered a chaotic world, and the ground beneath his feet was filled with colorful light. Don't even think about sealing me again. The Wind demonic emperor had already expelled more than half of the sword chi in his body. Feeling the changes in surroundings, he let out a shrill and horrifying howl. Ignoring the chaotic sword chi, he slashed out with his blade. Kacha! In the chaotic void, a blade mark appeared. The blade mark seemed to have been branded on the void, wriggling unceasingly. Heaven and earth reversal. Xuanho's black hair fluttered in the wind. Boundless Zhen Yuan flowed through her palm and poured into the ground. One could clearly feel that her life force was slowly fading away. Inside the formation, the world was spinning. That wriggling blade mark was twisted to the limit. With a puff, it disappeared like smoke, completely expelled by the power of the formation. Preposterous! You forced me to do this. Evil altar, evil power burn. The rage in the Wind demonic emperor's heart could burn the entire world. Below his feet, a huge altar suddenly appeared. On the altar, there were 4 evil devil heads. The evil devil heads opened their mouths and spat out evil flames onto his body. These evil flames didn't burn the Wind demonic emperor's body. Instead, they burned his sword chi. Crackle. The sword chi in the Wind demonic emperor's body was like snow meeting the scorching sun, rapidly disintegrating. The Wind demonic emperor's aura crazily expanded, constantly shaking the formation. Devour blood flower, devour for me. The demon flower emperor had already communicated with Xuanho. She formed a seal with one hand and then blasted it on her chest. With a puff, a large amount of essence blood spurted out, sprinkling on the ground. This essence blood was the life essence of the demon flower emperor. It seemed to have a life of its own, swimming like a snake. Under the guidance of Xuanho's Zhen Yuan, the essence blood merged into the formation. Whoosh! Below the Wind demonic emperor, a huge flower that looked like it was carved out of blood crystals flew up. Like a huge mouth of a demon, it swallowed the Wind demonic emperor. I swear, wait for me to come out. I will humiliate you in every possible way. The Wind demonic emperor's heart was filled with regret and anger. In fact, even though he had been injured by Yi Chun, he still had many means that he had not used yet. Apart from Yi Chun, he did not think that Xuanho and the Demon Flower Emperor could threaten him. However, he had not expected that Xuanho had unexpectedly arranged a formation at some point and wanted to seal him once again while he was seriously injured. This made him extremely angry, but at the same time, it also gave birth to a trace of panic. He was already afraid of being sealed. Bang, 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 bang. Cracks continuously appeared on the surface of the blood crystal demon flower. This was the full strength of the Wind demonic emperor. In the past, the blood flower of the demon flower emperor could not even block a single attack from the Wind demonic emperor. But now, the blood flower had merged with her life essence blood, and its power had skyrocketed. Coupled with the suppression of the formation, the Wind demonic emperor could not break it in a short time. Finally, the Wind demonic emperor broke out of the flower, but what was waiting for him was endless multicolored light. Unknowingly, the multicolored light had covered the entire space of the formation, causing the Wind demonic emperor to suffer a huge suppression. Open, open, open for me. The Wind demonic emperor seemed to have gone crazy. At this moment, the sword chi in his body had been completely cleared. Although there was only 2/3 of the evil force left, it was still extremely fierce and powerful. Holding the evil blade in his hand, he crazily slashed in a direction. The incomparably tyrannical blade light constantly split the multicolored light, trying to break the formation. Your hair. At the side, the Demon Flower Emperor saw Xuanho's hair turning white strand by strand. She was very clear that this was because her vitality was being burned too fast. That evil altar is summoning the nearby evil forces quickly disperse the fog. Every word Xuanho said was very strenuous. It was not easy to seal a character who was several times stronger than her. Don't worry. The Demon Flower Emperor had consumed a lot of blood essence. This blood essence was refined from the essence of blood and devil power, and contained a powerful vitality. Although it was a little weak, the Demon Flower Emperor knew that success or failure depended on this one move. As she rapidly formed hand seals, devil flowers appeared in all directions. These devil flowers tried their best to expand, and the petals opened to the limit, absorbing the crazily surging fog. Even so, there was still a lot of fog being transmitted into the formation. The evil altar under the feet of the Een Wind demonic emperor no longer spewed out evil fire, but pure evil force. When this evil force entered the body of the Een Wind demonic emperor, there was no need to refine it, and it became the evil force of the Een Wind demonic emperor. Devil Claw Eclipse. Tian Xie, who was entangled by Yi Chun, saw that the Een Wind demonic emperor was trapped in the formation. He was shocked and angry at the same time. His figure flickered, turning into a Een Wind. He bypassed Yi Chun and clawed at a stone on the periphery. Go back for me. Shifting his body, Yi Chun intercepted Tian Xie and shattered his claw energy with a slash of his sword. Yi Chun, if you dare to block me again, one day, I will annihilate your entire clan. Tian Xie roared. Your words can only be used to scare child. Today, don't even think of leaving this place. Even if you have to pay the price, I will annihilate your body and soul. The sword intent on Yi Chun's body was so dense that it was about to materialize. From the start of the battle until now, he had already let go of all restraints. He absolutely could not let his opponent leave alive. Bastard, you want to annihilate my body and soul with just you? Dream on. Evil Force Ignition. The evil force on Tian Xie's body burned fiercely. It was different from ordinary flames. This gray flame was hot one moment and cold the next. When it was hot, it was like lava, and when it was cold, it was like the cold wind of the nine heavens. As the evil force burned, Tian Xie's battle prowess skyrocketed, but Yi Chun could see that his evil force was depleting very quickly. Devil Claw Eclipse. The terrifying claw energy burned with gray flames as it clawed at Yi Chun. Puff! After a series of collisions, Yi Chun spurted out a mouthful of blood. Tian Xie's strength was not much weaker than Een Wind demonic emperor. In order to stop him, he could not take half a step back, nor could he use Sword Defense Mountain. Instant glory. Forcefully suppressing his boiling blood qi and Jin Yuan, Yi Chun took a step back and immediately rushed forward with an even faster speed. The sky's Scorpio sword waved and stabbed, and a dazzling light flickered on the tip of the sword. Retreat. Tian Xie still had a lingering fear of this sword. Een Wind demonic emperor was so powerful, but he was still heavily injured by this sword. He did not think that he could resist it. His figure flickered, not daring to let Yi Chun approach him. Not that sword. This sword strike of Yi Chun's was merely an empty shell. It didn't have much power at all. At the same time, Tian Xie's heart relaxed, but at the same time, his shame turned into anger. Yi Chun was humiliating him. Involuntarily, he stopped dodging and started gathering his claw energy. Now, this is instant glory. All of a sudden, Yi Chun's figure flickered, reappearing in front of Tian Xie and stabbing again. This time, a resplendent light burst out, as if an illusory star was exploding. Veins popped out on Tian Xie's forehead. He wanted to retreat, but under the effect of the frozen space and all living things, he could not even move a finger or make an expression. He could only watch the dazzling sword-tip stab into his forehead. Chapter 995. Boom! Tian Xie's head exploded, but not a single drop of blood could be seen. All the blood was minced into nothingness by the sword qi that contained the destruction sword intent. Not only that, the sword qi that had condensed into an explosive point not only destroyed Tian Xie's head, but also his body. Only his two legs were not affected too much. Seeing that his sword had succeeded, Yi Chun hurriedly retreated, trying to recover his life force and Jin Yuan. This was his weakest moment. With his two legs as the foundation, Tianxia's body grew rapidly. Unforgivable. Ah, my head. Tianxia's eyes were bloodshot, as if he had gone insane. Yi Chen's sword had annihilated nearly 70% of his evil power. However, because the sword had directly exploded inside his skull, the berserk destruction sword intent had invaded his sea of soul, causing his soul to suffer severe cuts. It should be known that the soul and the body were inseparable. If the body was intact, this bit of destruction sword intent wouldn't have been able to injure his muscles and bones. But now, the sword had pierced through his forehead and exploded inside his skull. The destructive power was unimaginable. Under the condition of having a splitting headache, Tianxia's mind was already a bit crazy. His body was filled with a malicious and ominous aura. Go dot. Ignoring the fine sword chi that had spread from his legs to his whole body, Tianxia's body leaned forward, pouncing towards Yi Chen. His hands formed into claws, and the sharp black chi made his hands look like ghost claws. Yi Chen ignored it. A huge black sword shot out from underground, welcoming Tianxia's attack. Unknowingly, Yi Chen had already used the iron blood silver blue sword to perform the Earth Fiend sword art, absorbing enough Earth Yuan evil chi from underground. Now that he couldn't move his body, he used the Earth Fiend sword to block Tianxia. Ding! 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 Sparks flew everywhere as one man and one sword fought fiercely. Yi Chen was like a statue, his aura surging. You want to seal me? That's impossible. Inside the Heaven and Earth Demon subduing formation, the Wind demonic emperor was getting stronger and stronger. Relying on the evil altar, he didn't need to worry about exhausting his evil power. Boom, boom, boom. With the power of a single person, he was able to block 80% of the dense fog, unable to advance even an inch. The Demon Flower Emperor had already exhausted all of his strength. Because he had absorbed too much evil power, the Demon Flower Emperor had nowhere to vent it. He swung his hands continuously, and magic balls of light bombarded the dense fog one after another. The violent shockwaves blew away a lot of the dense fog. Little Sister Yan's hair. The Demon Flower Emperor noticed that 1/10 of Xuanho's hair had turned white. This meant that 1/10 of her life force had already been consumed, which was 100 years. Although she had consumed a lot of blood essence and lost a lot of life force, it was only a loss of blood essence and not a direct loss of life force. She could still make up for it by spending a few decades. Could this be the backlash of the rules? The Demon Flower Emperor guessed. For the upcoming calamity of the foreign races, Xinhou had made a lot of preparations. The Heaven and Earth Demon subduing formation was one of the trump cards that she had prepared for the foreign races calamity. As a trump card, the Heaven and Earth Demon subduing formation was not an ordinary formation, but a sealing formation. Once it was used to the extreme, it would begin to interfere with the operation of the rules. Therefore, it would inevitably suffer the backlash of the rules. Originally, although the Wind demonic emperor was powerful, he wouldn't have failed after paying such a huge price. She didn't expect that the evil altar could actually absorb the evil power from the outside world through the Heaven and Earth Demon subduing formation and transform it into its own evil power. In this way, as long as the evil power was not exhausted, the Heaven and Earth Demon subduing formation would not be able to use its full power. I'm afraid I don't even have a 20% chance of success. Xinhou was now riding a tiger, and it was hard to get off, but she wasn't too surprised. Before this, she only had a 50% chance of success. After all, this was the first time she used the Heaven and Earth Demon subduing formation. Ha! The sealing formation will only make me stronger and stronger. In the colorful flowing light, the blade light crisscrossed, and the Wind demonic emperor laughed wildly. As he continued to swing the blade, he could feel that he and the true water emperor's body were becoming more and more compatible, and there was a trend of spirit and body becoming one. Previously, when he swung the blade, at least 30% of the power was lost, but now he could exert 80%. When he swung the blade, the sharp blade light could almost cut the sky and split the earth. Of course, with his current strength, there was still no way to get out of the trap, but he believed that when his strength improved step by step, tearing the formation was only a matter of time. The Earth Origin Evil Chi on the Earth Fiend Giant Sword was getting thinner and thinner. At the beginning, he could still fight with Tian Xie, but later, every time they exchanged blows, he would be sent flying, and the sword would cry. After calming down the boiling true essence, the silver vertical eye between Yi Chen's eyebrows opened, and suddenly a silver beam of light shot out. Tian Xie screamed, and blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. Before his soul was injured, he was not afraid of this soul attack, but now it was undoubtedly one disaster after another. Primordial Spirit Lock Kill. With a spurt of energy, Yi Chun continued to use the Primordial Spirit Lock Kill that he learned from Yuan Emperor. A blurry golden light flickered, and a sharp golden halo instantly sank into Tian Xie's eyebrows. In Tian Xie's soul sea, a boundless huge golden halo wrapped around it and was fiercely cutting it. The pain coming from the depths of his soul made Tian Xie howl uncontrollably. Evil Spirit Guard. Tian Xie hurriedly used a soul defense secret art. Boom! Within his soul sea, waves surged as a gigantic nefarious devil appeared. This nefarious devil was condensed from soul power. With a push of its hands, it grabbed onto one side of the golden light ring. Then, its body enlarged, and so did its arms, causing the golden light ring to expand, preventing it from cutting into his soul sea. It's over. As Tian Xie used the soul defense secret art, Yi Chun held the Sky Scorpio sword with both of his hands and slashed vertically. A dark green sword light flashed on Tian Xie's body. Crackle. Like a dead tree in winter being struck by lightning, Tian Xie's body suddenly ignited, and the raging dark green flame reached dozens of meters high. Some evil chi that wanted to escape were licked by the flame and turned into ashes, disappearing without a trace. This was the destructive flame formed by the fusion of water and fire. Just a trace of it was enough to destroy a mountain. Being licked by the flame, people like the yellow-robed old monster would probably die immediately, not to mention the remaining evil chi. I'm not willing. Tian Xie let out a miserable shriek, but his voice came to an abrupt stop. At this point, a giant of Evil Spirit Clan was completely killed by Yi Chun. It could be said that he was wronged, but not wronged. In Elysium, his realm was suppressed. Originally, he was at the 6th layer of life and death realm, but here, he could only display the strength of the 4th layer. Moreover, he wasn't completely familiar with Nirvana Demon Emperor's body, so he could only display 70 to 80% of his strength. In fact, he wasn't wronged because Yi Chen's Destruction Sword Intent specialized in restraining Evil Spirit Clan. Since ancient times, there have been a few unparalleled characters who comprehended the Destruction Sword Intent or Destruction Will. In that era, the number of sealed alien race experts were few, and they were all exterminated. However, destruction was not so easy to comprehend. Sometimes it depended on luck. No matter how talented one was, if one wasn't suitable for destruction will, one would most likely fail to comprehend it. This had nothing to do with strength. On the other side, Xianhe was still trying her best to suppress Yin Wen, Demonic Emperor. The white hair on her head was slowly growing from 1/10 to 1/5, consuming an astonishing amount of vitality. Senior Yin, what's going on? Before, Yi Chun had already sensed the change in the situation, but he didn't have the time to ask. Mysterious Queen's complexion paled as she said, "The Yin Wen Demonic Emperor summoned an evil sacrificial altar that can absorb the evil energy from the outside world to replenish himself. Your sword chi has also been burned to ashes by the evil flames he spewed out from the altar. Right now, his strength is constantly increasing and has already surpassed the time when he fought with you. I think this array can be used by 8 people at the same time. You and I can deal with him together. With Yuan Emperor as his backing, even if Yi Chun couldn't comprehend the Cosmos Demon subduing array for the time being, he should be able to cooperate with Xianhe. No, if it was before, you could temporarily join in. But now, there are too many changes in the Cosmos Demon subduing array. If you rashly join in, it will only reveal a flaw, giving the enemy a chance to take advantage of it. The only thing we can do now is to disperse the surrounding fog, preventing him from absorbing the evil power. At that time, we should be able to seal him by paying a small price. The Demon Flower Emperor could only block 80% of the fog. The remaining 20% was more than enough for the Wind Demonic Emperor. As long as Yi Chun blocked this 20% of the fog, the Wind Demonic Emperor's evil power would decrease with each use, becoming weaker and weaker. Of course, she would probably consume 2/3 of her lifespan. Looking at the fog, Yi Chun said, "I have a method, but I've never used it before. Let's give it a try." The Cosmos Demon's subduing array was a huge burden to Xianhou. When Yi Chun saw more and more white hairs on her head, he felt a stabbing pain in his heart. Using Instant of Glory might seem to consume a lot of vitality, but it wasn't much. Each time he used it, it was about 10 to 20 years of lifespan. After all, Instant of Glory only caused space to freeze for a moment. Using it twice in a row, Yi Chun consumed less than 40 years of lifespan. Compared to his 1,000 years of lifespan, it wasn't worth mentioning. However, Xianhou had already consumed more than 100 years of lifespan. The price she paid was the greatest. If she really wanted to suppress the Wind Demonic Emperor alone, it would be impossible without paying 600 to 700 years of lifespan. Martial Dao Yuan's spirit appear. With a solemn expression, Yi Chun's spirit, qi, and spirit were highly concentrated. His eyes stared at the space between his eyebrows. Buzz. In the next moment, a figure emitting a faint white radiance walked out of Yi Chun's body. This figure looked exactly the same as Yi Chun. Even the aura was the same. However, its entire body was blossoming with a layer of immortal holy light, making it seem like a man of light. Apart from this man of light had a sharp aura, as if a peerless sword had been unsheathed. If Yi Chun's body was the scabbard, then this man of light was the sword. Martial Dao Yuan's spirit. Xianhou and Demon Flower Emperor couldn't help but look over. Martial Dao Yuan's spirit was the combination of will and Zhen Yuan. At life and death realm, everyone had one. However, it was usually very weak and couldn't leave the body. Under normal circumstances, at Yi Chun's level, it was impossible for the Martial Dao Yuan spirit to leave the body. Once it did, the Martial Dao Yuan spirit would be equivalent to another Yi Chun with no difference in strength. Chapter 996. Once the Martial Dao Yuan Shun appeared, Yi Chun's body was like a statue, motionless. Apart from the fluctuations of life, there was no aura to speak of, as if all the essence had been taken away by the Martial Dao Yuan Shun. And the Martial Dao Yuan Shun, which was the glowing Yi Chun, flashed, actually passed through the outer wall of the array, and directly entered the chaotic universe devil subduing array. The multicolored light could not obstruct the glowing Yi Chun, and soon, the Wind Demonic Emperor, who was stepping on the evil altar, entered his sight. Without any nonsense, Yi Chun stretched out his right hand, and a glowing sword took shape, piercing towards the Wind Demonic Emperor. The sword tip burst with light, incomparably dazzling. Momentary glory. No! The Wind Demonic Emperor's eyes widened. How could he not see that this was Yi Chun's Martial Dao Yuan Shun? The Martial Dao Yuan Shun had the attribute of surpassing space, between substance and nothingness, but the power it burst out was absolutely the limit of the body, without a trace of illusion. Moreover, the Martial Dao Yuan Shun had one more advantage than the body, and that was it was not limited by the body and could display the martial arts mastered to an extremely perfect level. The multicolored light came to a standstill, and the Wind Demonic Emperor's expression froze. The sword, which carried Yi Chun's will, slowly and firmly pierced into the opponent's forehead. Boom! A blazing white light burst out, and countless sword qi intertwined. The Wind Demonic Emperor's body suddenly disappeared by a third. He was much stronger than Tian Xie, so it was impossible for Yi Chun's sword to annihilate the majority of his evil force. Even so, the sword piercing into the forehead and the sword chi were incomparable. His soul's sea was affected, and the sword chi wreaked havoc. His flesh and blood squirmed, and the wind demonic emperor once again condensed into a human body. However, what awaited him was another momentary glory. The martial Dao Yuan spirit's momentary brilliance was all born by the main body, so it could be used consecutively. In the outside world, Yi Chun was bleeding from his 7 orifices, and his face was much paler. The first momentary brilliance annihilated 1/3 of the wind demonic emperor's evil power, and the second momentary brilliance annihilated a full 50% of the wind demonic emperor's evil power. This was not because the second momentary brilliance was more powerful, but because after receiving the first momentary brilliance, the wind demonic emperor was already in a weakened state, and when receiving the second sword strike in a weakened state, the damage was naturally greater than the first. Bastard, go to hell! The more desperate the situation, the more it stimulated the wind demonic emperor's ferocious and evil nature. The space between his eyebrows was glowing, as if there was a gray sun there. Buzz! A wind demonic emperor, emitting a gray light, walked out of his body. This was the wind demonic emperor's evil Dao Yuan spirit. As a 7th-layer life and death demonic emperor, although his realm was suppressed by 2 layers and he had just escaped from the blood-colored seal, it didn't hinder his Yuan spirit from leaving his body for the final battle. The third momentary brilliance was unleashed, and Yi Chen's martial Dao Yuan spirit became much more illusory. However, this time, the wind demonic emperor's evil Dao Yuan spirit didn't suffer too much of a restriction, and its blade slashed out. Blazing sparks burst forth. Multicolored streamers surged up like waves, and the aftermath bombarded the main body of the wind demonic emperor on the evil sacrificial altar. However, that evil sacrificial altar was not an ordinary treasure. The 4 evil devil heads spurted out extremely pure evil power, which formed a protective shield and barely protected its main body. The reason why the wind demonic emperor didn't let his evil Dao Yuan spirit attack before was mainly because his main body was too weak. Once the evil Dao Yuan spirit left his main body would lose all ability to protect itself. Once his main body died, his evil Dao Yuan spirit would instantly dissipate. Therefore, he didn't dare to take risks and would rather fight steadily. Wind's 6 arts, 5th form, Berserk Evil splits the heavens. Without the restriction of his physical body, the wind demonic emperor's saber arts were much more refined. A domineering saber light tore through the multicolored light. Along the way, it rapidly split apart. Over 100 smaller saber lights crazily shot at Yi Chun. The 4th momentary brilliance was unleashed, and all the saber lights were frozen in place. Unless the wind demonic emperor's evil Dao Yuan spirit fought him in close combat, it would be impossible for it to break through his defenses. The wind demonic emperor was just about to charge forward when he suddenly let out a cry. Looking back, he saw that his main body, which was protected by the evil energy, was covered in blood. Occasionally, sword chi would break through his body. Yi Chen's 2 momentary brilliance had not only destroyed the majority of the wind demonic emperor's evil energy, but it had also left behind a large amount of sword chi in his body. Once his evil Dao Yuan spirit had appeared, the wind demonic emperor's main body had essentially lost its backbone. How could he possibly suppress the sword chi in his body? The wind demonic emperor's evil Dao Yuan spirit transformed into a ray of light that returned to his main body. It should be about time. Yi Chen's body was quite transparent, as if it was condensed from a ball of light. Turning around, Yi Chen passed through the outer wall of the array and turned into a ray of light that returned to his main body. Puff! Spurting out a mouthful of blood, Yi Chen struggled to say, he only has a little more than 10% of his evil energy left, and there is double the sword chi left in his body. I can fully suppress the seal now. As he spoke, Yi Chun spurted out another 3 mouthfuls of blood. Using the momentary brilliance 4 times in a row had almost reached the limit of his main body's endurance. If he used it again, he couldn't guarantee that there would be any side effects. For a moment, he felt the world spinning around him. He hurriedly sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to adjust his breathing. Nothing inside the heaven and earth demon subduing array could hide from Xuanho's senses. As soon as Yi Qin's martial Dao Yuan spirit came out, she activated the array with all her strength. In an instant, the array's interior space underwent dozens of changes, and each change would cause the evil altar's protective barrier to slightly distort. Pop! The protective barrier twisted to the limit and burst like a bubble. The Yin Wind demonic emperor only had time to swing his blade once before he was completely submerged by the multicolored light. I will break free again. His voice became smaller and smaller until it was almost inaudible. Rumble. In the outside world, the chaotic heaven and earth demon subduing array slowly sank into the ground. At the same time, the surrounding 8 stones engraved with runes also sank. When the ground became flat again, a circle of multicolored runes lit up. Following that, the light became dimmer and dimmer, turning into a multicolored metal-like brand. Did I succeed? The Demon Flower Emperor stopped absorbing the evil energy, his fragrant sweat dripping down. Being sealed again, even if the Yin Wind demonic emperor breaks free, his strength will be weakened to a new low. However, a demonic emperor level character is indeed powerful. If I didn't use the heaven and earth demon subduing array to trap him, it would be impossible to kill him. He could have easily escaped. Xuanho could tell that using Instant of Glory 4 times was already Yi Qin's limit. If he forcefully used it for the 5th time, his martial Yuan spirit, which was not yet condensed, might suffer irreparable damage, causing him to lose his memory or even lose his mind. As she spoke, Xuanho's white hair turned black at a visible speed. At Life and Death Realm, one's appearance would change very slowly. It would not be an exaggeration to say that decades were like one day. The reason why one's hair turned white was because one's vitality was being drained too quickly. When one's vitality stopped draining, everything would return to its original state. Of course, this was under the condition that one's vitality wasn't consumed too much. Once one lost more than 4/5 of their vitality, their hair turning white would be irreversible. In any case, our mission this time is basically a success. The Demon Flower Emperor smiled. And Xuanho nodded and looked at Yi Qin, who was meditating with his eyes closed. After a cup of tea's worth of time, Yi Qin slowly opened his eyes and faintly smiled. Seniors, you've worked hard. Are you all right? The Demon Flower Emperor asked. Apart from some minor after effects, I'm fine. At this level, it was impossible for the Yuan Shun of martial arts to leave the body without any side effects. He could clearly feel that his level of swordsmanship had dropped. The swordless heart required instincts, and the key to instincts was to unify the spirit and body. After the Yuan Shun of martial arts returned, he felt a little strange about his own body, as if he had been possessed. Of course, it was just a metaphor, and it was not that serious. You should be able to recover after some time. Xuanho sighed. I didn't expect you to be able to let your Yuan spirit leave your body. This is an ability that can only be obtained when one's martial will reaches the 8th step realm. When Yuan spirit left the body, the most important thing was the martial will. The higher the martial will, the more powerful the Yuan spirit would be. This kind of power was not in terms of strength, but rather the condensation of the Yuan spirit. Yeah, how did you do it? The Demon Flower Emperor was a bit curious. Yi Qin honestly said, I cultivate a Yuan spirit secret art that can strengthen the Yuan spirit in advance. Yuan spirit secret arts didn't only include soul secret arts, but also things that could temper the will and soul. To be honest, Yuan spirit didn't have much effect on a person's strength. It could be said that it didn't have much of an effect on a person's strength. Yuan spirit only had 2 uses. One was to ignore most barriers and travel freely. The second was that after the body died, the Yuan spirit wouldn't dissipate for a short period of time. At that time, It could heavily injure the enemy or even kill the enemy at the crucial moment. But after that, it would still die. The Yuan spirit of martial Tao could not survive without the body. The body was the weakness of the Yuan spirit of martial Tao. Therefore, when two sides were fighting, using the Yuan spirit of martial Tao to fight the enemy was a suicidal action. The enemy could completely destroy your body, leaving you with nowhere to go. You would be like a soul without a body, homeless. Therefore, Yuan spirit could only be used to deal with some unexpected situations. For example, the situation where one couldn't enter with their body and could only enter with their Yuan spirit. But even so, Yuan spirit still had some auxiliary functions. The more condensed the Yuan spirit was, the stronger the control over one's body would be, and the more exquisite the martial arts would be. So that's how it is. The Demon Flower Emperor faintly nodded. We can't stay here for long. Let's return to True Spirit Continent first. Shinho suggested. All right, let's go. The three had some internal injuries, and their condition wasn't 80% of their peak. If they encountered a powerful enemy, it would be extremely dangerous. Leaving the True Water Palace, the three headed toward True Spirit Continent. Chapter 997. Just when Yi Chen's group of three sealed the Yin Wind demonic emperor once again, in the depths of the void, in a certain dilapidated plain space, an extremely formidable mana fluctuation spread out. This mana fluctuation was cold and overbearing. Anyone who was affected by it couldn't help but shiver. They felt cold from the inside out, as if something unclean had entered their body. What a formidable curse power! Although Lord Curse is not in his peak state, he isn't as weak as we imagined. The woman with a pair of bat wings on her back said. The tall, dark-skinned man said, when we arrived, the seal had already been greatly eroded by Lord Curse's curse power. Even if we didn't appear, Lord Curse would still be able to break the seal within 3 to 5 years and escape. Lord Curse is coming out. The one who spoke was the man with a long horn on his head. He had once joined hands with the Netherworld Demon King to hunt down Yi Chen. Hearing this, the few people looked towards the center of the mana fluctuation. In the center of the mana fluctuation, a person slowly rose. This person had withered yellow hair, an extremely ugly face, and a very deformed figure. There were also very ugly people in the human race, but compared to this strange person, they undoubtedly paled in comparison. This person was ugly and ominous. Just a glance at him would make one's hair stand on end and make one unable to sleep at night. In other words, this person was not only ugly, but also the temperament he emitted was even uglier. The woman with bat wings said, Rumor has it that Lord Curse is a famous handsome man among us demons. However, during one of his expeditions, he obtained a cursed demon sword. From then on, not only did his mana change into curse power, but he also seemed to be cursed. The stronger he is, the uglier his appearance. Although Lord Curse's escape is a good thing for us, you should be careful. Because Lord Curse's appearance changed greatly, many of his confidants left him. In a fit of anger, he humiliated them in every possible way and tortured them to death. From then on, he even took pleasure in humiliating beauties. Later, because he accidentally killed the granddaughter of Lord Demon Emperor, although that Demon Emperor was in the same realm as him, he was several times stronger than him. Lord Demon Emperor chased after him, and, as a last resort, he was forced to come to Elysium. The dark-skinned tall man reminded the woman. He was the leader of the group, called Blackstone. I know. After saying that, the woman's appearance changed and turned into an ordinary woman. So you practice the muscle-changing transformation technique? I feel relieved. Blackstone nodded. Ha! I, Cursed Demon Emperor, have finally escaped. You guys, did you bring me any beauties? With a swoosh, the figure of the ugly man appeared in front of the three of them like a phantom. A fishy smell assaulted their nostrils, mixed with terrifying illusions. The three of them were shocked and hurriedly bowed. Blackstone said, Welcome back, Lord Curse. Don't worry, Lord Curse. We have already prepared a human queen for you in the palace. I guarantee that you'll be satisfied. Good, you guys are really considerate. Hearing this, the The cursed demon emperor's eyes flashed with a cruel light of lust. Lord Curse, we shouldn't stay here for long. Let's go back to the palace first, Blackstone suggested. No rush. The cursed demon emperor waved his hand. Let me summon my cursed demon sword back first. Cursed demon sword. The three of them felt their hearts go numb. The cursed demon sword was a demon sword with a curse. Although it was powerful, it was too evil. The cursed demon emperor had become like this because of the cursed demon sword. Both of his hands quickly formed a seal. The cursed demon emperor spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. A mournful and eerie howl sounded. A gray skull wrapped in blood streaked across the air and disappeared. Chu family of Windy Nation, Panshan Island. Rumble. The entire Panshan Island shook violently. Huge cracks appeared on the island. From the cracks, endless horrifying aura gushed out. Some of the Chu family members were just slightly touched by the aura. Their appearances immediately changed, becoming extremely ugly. Their eyes shone with a strange and violent blood-red light as they pounced on their own clansmen. For a moment, the Chu family's blood flowed like a river. What kind of sin did our Chu family commit? The Chu family elders cried as they watched their clansmen die one by one. Family leader, be careful. Seeing the countless ugly clansmen with strange aura pouncing over, a young figure stood in front of the Chu family leader. It was Chu Ming. Swoosh, swoosh. Those incoming clansmen were blown away by the finger power one by one. They fell on the ground one by one, unable to get up. However, they did not die. Back when Yichan was still a disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School, Chu Ming was a disciple of the Emerald Martial School. The two had accepted the same mission and fought side by side. Although Chu Ming was far from Yi Chen's level, he was still a normal genius. After so many years, he had already cultivated to the early sea of Soul's realm. Bang! All of a sudden, a huge gray-black demon sword broke out of the mountain. After circling once in the air, it shot into the depths of the void. Because of its extreme speed, no one could detect it. I'm back. The cursed demon emperor waved his hand, and a gray-black demon sword with a horrifying aura appeared in his hand. This demon sword was wrapped in a layer of turbid chi. Vaguely, countless screams could be heard coming from within the turbid chi. Blackstone and the other two glanced at it, and they immediately started sweating profusely. Their minds were in chaos. Worthy of being the cursed demon sword. There is no damage at all. The cursed demon emperor knew very well that the cursed demon sword had been in his hands when he had been sealed. However, the cursed demon sword had somehow broken through the seal. If not for the fact that his mind was connected to the cursed demon sword, it would have taken him a lot of effort to find it. Lord Fear, congratulations on your return. On the 5th day after Blackstone and the other two unsealed the cursed demon emperor, 9 Nether and a few other demons also unsealed the Lord of Fear, whose strength was not inferior to the cursed demon emperor's. If the title of the cursed demon emperor came from the cursed demon sword, then the title of the Lord of Fear came from his terrifying and cruel style. Before coming to Elysium, the Lord of Fear had a planet. It was said that his palace on that planet was built entirely from the bones and flesh of his enemies. He drank fresh blood and ate raw flesh every day. He liked to cook the internal organs of his enemies. Almost none of his enemies had a good ending. Just like the cursed demon emperor, the Lord of Fear had also been sent to Elysium because he had offended a high-level demons. I want to eat people. Arrange it for me. The image of the Lord of Fear was still considered normal, but his eyes clearly had the luster of a ferocious beast. 9 Nether laughed bitterly in his heart. Others said that he was a crazy person, but compared to the Lord of Fear, he was just a mischievous troublemaker occasionally. This was the first time he had seen the Lord of Fear in person. The terrifying aura of the Lord of Fear that regarded any flesh and blood as food brought him great pressure. He could not guarantee that if he rejected the Lord of Fear would eat him alive. I have prepared a demon king and a human king. They're just waiting for Lord Fear to enjoy them. 9 Nether said respectfully. Well done. I was planning to eat you to restore my vitality. The Lord of Fear nodded calmly, But what he said made 9 Nether's hair stand on end. Fallout Sword Sect. Lingyun Peak. Xianhou and Yi Chun stood side by side, watching the surging clouds. 2 years have passed in the blink of an eye. In these 2 years, more than 50 people have become life and death kings. This can be considered a happy occasion. At this moment, Xuanhou's aura was much more powerful than when she fought the Yin Wind demonic emperor 2 years ago. Purely in terms of cultivation base, she had already reached the level of 2,000 years. However, if someone were to know that her cultivation base was at the peak of the first layer of life and death realm, they would be dumbfounded. Under ordinary circumstances, only one person could cultivate to the first layer of life and death realm in Elysium. And in this era, including Yi Chun, there were 2. The reason why Xianhou could obtain the true cultivation method of life and death realm was not because of Yi Chun, but because of the titled King Palace's Palace Spirit's approval. Only by obtaining the Palace Spirit's approval could one have a high chance of successfully breaking through. Those who couldn't obtain its approval would most likely turn into ashes and cease to exist. After all, the Palace Spirit's insight was not something ordinary people could compare to. But this means that the great calamity of the foreign races will erupt at any time, right? Yichen nodded as the mountain breeze fluttered his long hair. In these 2 years, the majority of the peak geniuses who had competed with him had entered life and death realm. Among the 50 people, the majority were from the younger generation, such as Dugaju, Dantai Mingyue, Luo Tiandu, Chu Zhongtian, Yin Fengfeng, Jiang Tian, Xiao Hozun, Bai Wuxiue, Xiao Chuhe, and Lu Xiaoyu. As for the peak geniuses of Blood Sky Continent and Sky Sword Continent, as long as they were continent-level geniuses, they had all entered life and death realm. Those geniuses who had competed with Yi Chen earlier, such as Edict Prince Li Xiaoyun and Jing Aoshuan, had also entered the first layer, second layer, or third layer of life and death chamber, only a step away from life and death realm. 2 years ago, apart from Yi Chun, only Marquis Sword Star, Marquis Sword Snow, and Murong Qingcheng had entered life and death realm. Among these geniuses, some were still insignificant, merely equivalent to ordinary mid- and high-step kings. Only a few had the strength of peak kings. However, there are also some fierce geniuses. Among them, Marquis Sword Snow, Dugaju, Dantai Mingyue, Chu Zhongtian, and a few others were undoubtedly the representatives. Marquis Sword Snow was needless to say. Under life and death realm, apart from Su Jing, only this person could pose a slight threat to Yi Chun. In Dugaju's case, he was a genius who grew stronger by meeting strong opponents. In the beginning, he wasn't particularly eye-catching in Elysium, but each time, he would make great progress. His potential was limitless. Among so many geniuses, apart from Yi Chun, Dantai Mingyue was the only one proficient in Space Profound. She was low-key, but her strength was formidable. Chu Zhongtian, on the other hand, had completely relied on his talent. His evil spirit body had brought him too many benefits. Without any exaggeration, after entering the life and death realm, his evil Yuan's might was much more powerful than mysterious queens, who had reached the peak of the first sky of life and death realm. Even Yi Chun, who had already reached the peak of the second sky of life and death realm, could not guarantee that his Zhen Yuan's purity could rival Chu Zhongtian's. Chapter 998. Of course, compared to these 4, Murong Qingxing and Su Jing were not the slightest bit inferior. In fact, Su Jing was even above them. This was not a blind guess of Yi Chen's. From Demon Flower Emperor, Yi Chen learned that Murong Qingxing's strength had already reached the level of titled monarchs of Elysium. Moreover, she was not an ordinary titled monarch. The reason why her strength had advanced so rapidly was because Murong Qingsheng had inherited an extremely noble bloodline of demons. This bloodline was called the Dark Demonist bloodline. However, this bloodline was too powerful, so powerful that it could corrode one's soul and mind. After all, Murong Qingsheng was not a pure demon, but a demonic human. Therefore, she had been trying her best to tame the Dark Demonist bloodline and strengthen herself in the process, preparing for the great calamity of the foreign races. As for Su Jing, her strength could be guessed even with her toes. It should be known that in Elysium, she was the only one with a complete dragon bloodline. As for how powerful a dragon was, it was impossible to guess. One could only know that it was a demonic beast that stood above all other beasts. Their aptitudes had reached the supreme grade, and they did not need to cultivate bitterly. After reaching adulthood, they could become demonic kings. As for how powerful a demonic king-level dragon was, one could only know after seeing it with their own eyes. In any case, the more powerful experts appeared in Elysium, the happier Yi Chun would be. Yi Chun was not sure about the others, but he was sure that these 6 were the main force. In order to make them stronger, Yi Chun had even given the Zhen Yuan crystals produced by the Devouring Island to Marquis Sword Snow, Dugu Ju, Dantai Mingyue, and Chu Zhongtian. After all, he had already reached the peak of the second layer of life and death realm, and did not need Zhen Yuan crystals to increase his cultivation base. Murong Qingcheng cultivated demonic power, and Su Jing cultivated dragon power. Neither did she need Zhen Yuan crystals. The 4 did not refuse. This was not the time to be soft-hearted. Increasing their strength was the most important thing. We're increasing our strength, and so are those foreign races. What worries me the most is the Yin Wen demonic emperor. A trace of worry appeared on Xuanho's face. Yin Wen demonic emperor was a 7th-layer demonic emperor level character. Even if he were to be suppressed by 2 layers in Elysium, he would still be at the 5th layer. Such characters would be extremely frightening if they were allowed to recover from their weakened state. It should be known that the 5th layer corresponded to 7-star strength. In this era, Elysium did not have 7-star strength. Even Yi Chun. In a few short years, they won't be able to recover to their peak. But it is indeed worrying. Yi Chun let out a light breath. His strength had already reached a limit, and he could not increase it any further. In terms of cultivation base, he was at the peak of the 2nd layer. If he continued to increase it, he might explode and perish. Therefore, he cannot be anxious. In terms of sword will, his destruction sword intent and immortal sword intent had both reached the peak of the 6th step due to their resonance, only a step away from the 7th step. However, the higher one's sword will went, the harder it would be to increase it. Not to mention, it was an attribute sword intent, which might take dozens of years to reach. As for sword domain, Yi Chun had already reached the peak of the 3rd layer because he had been to the sword world many times. Later on, no matter how hard he tried, he could not increase it by even half a step. Fortunately, it was not a waste of time. Thousands of sword arts had appeared in his mind. Although he could not comprehend them all, they would become Yi Chun's foundation. In terms of sword arts, momentary brilliance was the strongest. No matter how he improved the other sword arts, they could not surpass it. Therefore, his strength nearing 7-star had already been calculated. Before going to the titled King Palace, Yi Chun had the battle strength of a 5-star tyrant, and his life and death realm had reached the peak of the 1st layer. Combined with momentary brilliance, he had the battle strength of a mid-6-star tyrant. The peak of the 2nd layer and the peak of the 3rd layer of sword domain barely gave Yi Chun the battle strength of a 6-star tyrant. As for spirit body, Yi Chun's spirit body had also reached the late 5th step. In Bloodlight Ocean, Yi Chun had found a blood crystal flower and killed 2 blood demon emperors, obtaining their blood demon crystals. His spirit body had advanced from the early 5th step to the late 5th step, and his physical body's defense had reached a whole new level. Unfortunately, the strength of the spirit body had nothing to do with strength. It only had endurance. Let's not talk about this. When it's time, it will come. How is the forging of your sword? Xuanho shook her head and changed the topic. Speaking of the sword, Yi Chun's face revealed a trace of rarely seen excitement. If nothing unexpected happens, it will be completed in half a month. The sword the two were talking about was neither a semi-extreme grade sword nor a pseudo-extreme grade sword, but a genuine extreme grade sword. Although he didn't know the final grade of the sword, Yi Chun estimated that it would be at least at the peak of mid-supreme grade. As for the Sky Scorpio sword, before its crystal power was exhausted, it was merely mid-supreme grade. In order to forge an extreme grade sword, Yi Chen had failed 19 times in total, using up hundreds of extreme grade materials. If he hadn't been collecting extreme grade materials in the recent years and inherited a batch of them from Fire Emperor, as well as some gifted to him by Xianhou, Demon Flower Emperor, and Spirit Pill King, he wouldn't have had so many extreme grade materials to consume. The difficulty of forging an extreme grade sword was no less than breaking through to life and death realm. Fortunately, although he had failed 19 times, apart from 10 sword embryos exploding, the other 9 times had produced defective swords, which were pseudo-extreme grade swords. Of the 9 pseudo-extreme grade swords, Yi Chen kept 3 for himself and gave the other 6 to Xianhou, Demon Flower Emperor, and Spirit Pill King as compensation. After forging the 20th extreme grade sword, Yi Chen's sword forging arts had reached a comprehensive level. Originally, he would have been satisfied with forging an ordinary extreme grade sword. The Sky Scorpio sword could be used for the defensive sword art, while this sword could be used for battle. However, he didn't expect that the incomplete extreme grade sword would release such a powerful might, surpassing the low-grade extreme grade. Therefore, Yi Chen wasn't in a hurry to complete it. Instead, he placed it at the center of the 99 Origin Return Great Array, allowing it to absorb a large amount of spiritual qi and refine the sword's body. At the same time, he drew in the essence of the Earth Fiend, true fire, to refine the fine impurities within. In the blink of an eye, several days had passed. Behind the Spirit Cloud Peak was a fiery red mountain peak that was releasing boundless heat. This was the place Yi Chen used to forge swords, and was called the Sword Forging Peak. In the depths of the Sword Forging Peak, he had arranged an Earth Fiend True Fire Great Array. This Great Array could absorb the Earth Fiend True Fire in the depths of the ground and use the power of the array to remove the false and retain the true, condensing the Earth Fiend True Fire Essence. The temperature of this Earth Fiend True Fire Essence was extremely shocking. Ordinary metal materials would be turned into ashes in less than a breath's time. Only extreme-grade materials could endure it, but they would also melt very quickly. At this moment, in the underground cave of the Sword Forging Peak, a sword that was about to take shape was dancing up and down. Its sharp sword qi could cut through everything in this world. Once this sword is born, my power will increase by quite a bit. I'll use it to kill all the alien race warriors invading Elysium. On the side, Yi Chen's eyes were cold and serious. The sword was used to kill people. The more people it killed, the stronger the killing intent would be, and the sharper the sword would be. Every strand of qi would have the power to cut souls. Using this sword to kill alien race warriors was undoubtedly the best way to sacrifice it. Walking out of the Sword Forging Peak, Yi Chen arrived at the Spirit Cloud Peak. On the peak, there were 6 youngsters training their sword skills. They were Yi Xian, Yi Xiaoxiao, and Yi Chen's 4 disciples. In the blink of an eye, a couple of years had passed. Some of them were already 20 years old, and some were nearing that age. Their growth was astonishing, especially the 4th disciple, Lung Xinghan. He was the strongest among the 6. Although he was only at the mid-astral reaching realm, his power was enough to compete with some famous Sea of Souls realm warriors. Master, Big Brother. Seeing Yi Chen's arrival, everyone stopped their sparring. Faintly nodding, Yi Chen said, "I'm very satisfied with your progress. Unfortunately, I didn't give you much time. If you had a few more years, you might have reached the Sea of Souls realm." The great calamity of the foreign races would not only be a battle between life and death realm warriors, but also between Sea of Souls realm warriors. For example, in the parallel space battlefield where the Demon King was sealed, apart from the skeletons of life and death realm warriors, there were also Sea of Souls realm warriors and even astral reaching realm warriors. The alien race disaster was not only a disaster for the warriors of Elysium, but it was also a very dangerous opportunity. Once they got through it, they would definitely have a huge improvement. They might even be able to break through their limits and reach a realm that they had never been able to reach before. However, the condition was that they had to survive. Therefore, Yi Chen did not plan to let his top 4 disciples and siblings hide in the falling Dust Sword School and survive with the great protective spell. When it was necessary, they would have to join the battle and fight against the astral-reaching realm warriors of the alien races. But he also knew that although astral-reaching realm warriors were not as powerful as life and death realm warriors, astral-reaching realm warriors were actually the most dangerous ones. Whether it was the alien races or the Elysium, there were way too many astral-reaching realm warriors. They were just like small soldiers, and in battles, the ones who would die the most would be the small soldiers. He was a bit worried. "Don't worry, Master. I, Lung Xinghan, am not someone who will just live without purpose. I will live and die with the falling dust sword school. The alien races have invaded our Elysium, and they will pay with blood." Lung Xinghan's eyes were filled with killing intent. Dongfang Bai, who was usually the most gentle, also said with a serious tone, "Master, you have always taught me that sword arts are for killing, not for show. This time, I, Dongfang Bai, will let go of everything and fight against the alien races." Big brother. The six of them were fearless, filled with passion. Yi Chun chuckled and shook his head. "Not being afraid of death is a good thing, but I do not recommend fighting to the death without retreating. When it is time to retreat, you should retreat. Only by staying alive can you kill more alien races. Plus, this great disaster will be decided by the battles between us life and death realm warriors. I will teach you your sword formation combination attack method. You guys are almost done practicing it, so use it at the critical moment. Don't attract too much attention. No one would want their disciples and siblings to die on the battlefield, and Yi Chun did not want that either. While training them, he would try to give them a chance to survive. Days passed by, and the time for the appearance of the extreme rank great sword was getting closer and closer. Meanwhile, the whole of Elysium was getting quieter and quieter. It was the last calm before the storm. Chapter 999. Near the dead end, on a planet that had been stained with the blood of the Dragon King, there were many figures. Cursed Demon Emperor, Lord of Fear, I, the Troll Emperor, will be the commander this time. Do you have any objections? The figures were divided into two camps. The larger camp was the demons. At this moment, among the three leading demons, there was the cursed Demon Emperor and the Lord of Fear. As for the one who spoke, it was a majestic middle-aged man with a height of 5 meters, arms and legs as thick as his eyes fell on the cursed Demon Emperor and the Lord of Fear. "You can be the commander, but don't even think about ordering me." The cursed Demon Emperor seemed to be a little afraid of the majestic middle-aged man and didn't want to compete for the position of commander. "Ordering you? I don't have the time for that, but it's good that you agree." "Lord of Fear, what do you say?" "I don't care." The Lord of Fear was expressionless. If it were another demon who spoke to them like this, they would have been torn apart. The reason why they were afraid of the majestic middle-aged man was because the other party was stronger than them. No matter where they were, strength was respected. So what if you were cruel and inhumane? Even if your name could scare children to tears, in the face of absolute strength, they were inferior. The strength of the Troll Emperor was not just a little higher than theirs, but his magic power was even more vigorous and boundless. After receiving the two's replies, the Troll Emperor nodded with satisfaction. Although the cursed Demon Emperor and the Lord of Fear were not as strong as him, it was a critical moment now. It would not be good for everyone if they fell out. "Emperor Enshur, where is your senior brother, the Wind demonic emperor?" The Troll Emperor asked the evil spirit camp. There was only one person leading the evil spirit. This person's face was yellow and ordinary, but his eyes were like a poisonous snake. In terms of mysteriousness, he was even more mysterious than the Wind demonic emperor. He was sealed again. Hearing the other party mention the Wind demonic emperor, Emperor Enshur frowned and said, "Sealed again? Who did it?" Generally speaking, seals were very difficult to remove. Only those ancient seals would become loose due to the corrosion of time. Now that the great battle was imminent, where would they have the time to unseal the Wind demonic emperor? Even if they were given 10 years, it wouldn't be enough. After all, their research on seals was inferior to humans. If I'm not mistaken, it should be Yi Chun, Xianhou, and the Demon Flower Emperor. Their auras are still lingering at the scene. Emperor Einshur flicked his fingernails, a mysterious killing intent appearing on his face. Yichun, the Troll Emperor, had heard this name from other demons more than once. This boy was a rare genius. He was probably only 35 or 36 years old. Among the demons, 35 or 36 years old was impossible to achieve anything. I'll deal with this brat. Once I kill him, I should be able to make the others despair even faster. The Troll Emperor was very clear that Yichun had unknowingly become the symbol of Elysium, the spiritual pillar of many life and death kings. Everyone hoped for a miracle to happen to him. If he was cut off, it would undoubtedly be a huge blow to the people of Elysium. Leave that Shinho to me. It's been a long time since I've tasted a human queen. Last time, it was completely useless, and she was played to death very quickly. The cursed demon emperor licked his lips, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth. Death Path, a vast expanse of primal chaos. Outside the Death Path was an even more boundless starry sky. The countless stars were like diamonds. In the starry sky that was unknown how far away from the Death Path, a dense black cloud appeared. The black cloud moved faster and faster, sweeping past the stars one after another. Only after getting closer did one realize that it was not a black cloud, but a fleet of completely sealed battleships. These battleships were entirely black, looking like huge shuttles. Dazzling blue flames were surging on both sides and at the rear of the battleships. It was precisely this flame that allowed the battleships to move as fast as light, without any sound or presence. If someone were here, they would definitely recognize these battleships. Each of these battleships was extremely valuable, and there were actually hundreds of them here. Go through space. An order came from inside the battleships. Yes, connect to the space stone's energy and go through space. 10, 9, 8, 7, 2, 1. Buzz, 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 buzz. In front of the battleships, the space twisted, forming a horizontal funnel. The battleships rapidly entered and eventually disappeared. In the void of primal chaos, countless faint multicolored lights flickered. These lights were emitted by the huge gems on the exterior of the battleships. The interior of the battleship was extremely luxurious. At the head of the battleship, there was a small conference room. Inside, a dozen demons were discussing something. Haha, this time, we demons have mobilized an army of 2 million. Sweeping through Elysium will be a cinch. At that time, all the resources inside will belong to us demons. The humans inside will also become our slaves. How much wealth would that be? You should know the human women are very popular outside. This amount of wealth is incalculable. Humans have the fastest reproduction rate. Once we sell a batch, we will immediately replenish another batch. We will never be able to sell all of them unless we sell the entire world at once. Who would be so foolish as to sell an entire world? But counting it, this is already the third inhabited world that we have conquered. This time, when we go to Elysium, I must get 100 beautiful human women to be my slaves. Everyone, don't be too happy too early. In ancient times, many races invaded Elysium. Although the people of other races in Elysium have all died, other than us demons, the evil spirit race's forces are still not weak. If we want to dominate the entire Elysium, our chances are not very high. At most, we will take 60 to 70%. The evil spirit race's forces are far inferior to us demons. Giving them 20% is already not bad. I wonder how many troops the evil spirit race will mobilize this time. In another part of the starry sky, there were also 200 battleships flying in the chaos. The demons are very powerful, so they probably won't give us a 60 to 40 split. In my opinion, it's already not bad for the evil spirit race to get 30%. No matter where the demons are, they have always been domineering. I'm just afraid that we won't even get 30%. You guys have never worked with the demons before, so you don't know how domineering they are. No way. We also mobilized 1 million troops this time. Could it be that we can only get 20%? The demons are not 4 times stronger than us, so why should they get 80%? It's still too early to talk about this now. Elysium is not easy to deal with. In ancient times, many of our races mobilized tens of millions of troops, but we still failed to conquer it. Instead, we suffered heavy casualties. It's not too late to talk about this after we conquer Elysium. Hee, what's there to be afraid of? The ancient times of Elysium are different from the modern times. Back then, they could freely enter and exit their own world. There were many experts, and they had the home ground. What about the modern times? They are extremely weak, and our evil spirit race and demons have many experts among them. It will be easy to conquer Elysium. That's true, but even a lion has to use its full strength to capture a rabbit. We can't be careless. Outside the dead end, there was a floating mountain peak. On the mountain peak, many palaces stood. Inside one of the palaces, 3 evil spirit race experts and 6 demons gathered together. Their cultivation bases were all terrifyingly high, all of them at the 5th sky of life and death realm. It should be known that outside of Elysium, the 5th sky of life and death realm was equivalent to 7-star battle power. In the blink of an eye, we've already guarded the entrance of Elysium for more than 90 years. When the 100 years is up, someone will come to replace us. 90 years is just a blink of an eye. We're very lucky. We'll be leaving in a few years, but who would have thought that it would be time for us to invade Elysium again? Yeah, Elysium has fallen, so we can take the opportunity to make some profits. The army should be here soon, right? There's no rush. It'll only be a few days later. Suddenly, the eyes of the leading demons lit up. They're here. Swish. As he spoke, his figure flickered and flew out of the palace, followed by the other 8. Unknowingly, hundreds of puppet battleships had appeared not far away from the floating mountain peak. The battleships on the right were all black, and there were 400 of them. The battleships on the left were gray, and there were 200 of them. Altogether, there were 600 battleships. Judging from the size of these battleships, each of them could carry 5,000 people. 600 battleships would be 3 million soldiers. The leading battleships opened, and dozens of people walked out. Among them, the strongest was at the 5th sky of life and death realm, while the weakest was at the 3rd sky of life and death realm. Everyone, you worked hard. Haha, it's nothing. It's only 100 years. Although the 9 people guarding the dead end were also at the 5th sky of life and death realm, their strength was much higher than other experts at the same level. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been sent to guard the dead end. Bloodrain, I didn't expect to see you this time. Haha, you've been guarding here for more than 90 years, right? Don't worry, as long as we conquer Elysium, we'll definitely get you some treasures. I'll give you as many beauties as you want. The 2 demons seemed to be familiar with each other, and they started chatting. This time, we'll definitely win. Inside, 3 of our great demon emperors have escaped. They are Lord Troll Emperor, Lord of Fear, and Lord Cursed Demon Emperor. Evil Spirit Race has suffered a bit this time. Lord Wind Demonic Emperor has been sealed again, leaving only Lord Emperor Einshur. In the invasion of Elysium, Evil Emperor and Demon Emperor were the strongest. Each and every one of them was at the 7th sky of life and death realm. As for 8th sky of life and death realm, it was not that they couldn't come, but the key was that Elysium suppression was too powerful. The stronger one was, the greater the suppression. 8th sky of life and death realm entering Elysium would only be a bit more powerful than 7th sky of life and death realm. Moreover, it would damage one's foundation. Therefore, apart from the ancient era, no 8th sky of life and death realm would enter Elysium. Once they died, they wouldn't even have a place to cry. After all, being killed by the enemy with one's strongest strength was better than being killed by the enemy with 2 sky of life and death realm. As for 9th sky of life and death realm, don't even think about it. 9th sky of life and death realm was very rare in every race. Not to mention the fact that they were unwilling to come. Even if they were willing, the race's higher-ups wouldn't allow them to come. Chapter 1000. Inside the dead end, puppet battleships shuttled back and forth. The dead end was the entrance to Elysium. Normally, only life and death kings could freely enter and exit. Those below the realm of life and death would be directly annihilated into nothingness. However, with the protection of the puppet battleships, the demons and evil spirits below the realm of life and death would be safe and sound. In a few blinks of an eye, all the puppet battleships arrived in Elysium's starry sky. What a powerful suppressive power! Almost at the same time, everyone felt their realm being suppressed. The fifth layer of life and death realm was suppressed to the third layer of life and death realm, the third layer to the first layer of life and death realm, and the third layer to the half-step king realm, while the half-step king realm was suppressed to the peak of late sea of soul realm. The lower the realm, the smaller the suppression. For example, astral reaching realm experts were only suppressed a little. However, invading another world was not as simple as having one's realm suppressed. Because the world's Yuan Qi in the true spirit world was not suitable for the demon race and evil spirit race, the two races could not display their martial arts to the limit. In other words, under the same realm, their battle power was inferior to that of the outside world, and they could only display about 80% of their strength. Not good. My gate is broken. A demon king of demons yelled as the aura on his body leaked out. In the blink of an eye, his realm had dropped from the third layer to the first layer. He was originally at the fifth layer, but after being suppressed, his realm had turned into nothingness due to his weak foundation. Even if he were to leave Elysium right now, his realm would only be below the first layer. As for the others, after leaving Elysium, their suppressed realm would return, and they would only need to go into seclusion for a while to recover to their peak. Mine is broken as well. There were many from the Tao sect who did not have a solid foundation. More than 40 demons had their cultivation levels plummeted, while nearly 20 evil spirit race members had their cultivation levels plummeted the most. The better ones had their cultivation levels plummeted to the bottom. Damn it, we didn't earn enough in Elysium this time. It's a big loss. A demon king's face was filled with anger. The commander of the demons creased his brows. More than 60 life and death kings of the evil spirit race had their battle power greatly reduced, and some of them had even lost more than half of their battle power. This was not a good sign. Perhaps I'm overthinking things. We, the demons, have brought 1,000 demon kings, and the evil kings of the evil spirit race have nearly 500 as well. Adding Elysium and our demons and evil spirit race's experts, a mere 60 life and death kings is nothing. Who is the commander of my demons this time? Just as the puppet warship passed through the dead end and entered Elysium, a majestic voice rang out. It was as if a mighty god was speaking, and the voice was omnipresent. What a vigorous demonic power! The commander of the evil spirit race was shocked, and a bitter expression appeared on his face. The demons had 3 demon emperors in Elysium, while their evil spirit race only had 1 evil emperor. If he guessed correctly, the speaker should be the Troll Emperor. The Troll Emperor had the demonic bloodline of the demons, and his true body was extremely huge. In the same realm, his demonic power was more than 10 times that of an ordinary person. Lord Troll Emperor, I'm Blood Scythe. I'm honored to be the commander this time. The door of the leading demon's puppet warship opened, and a tall figure flew out and said respectfully, "All right, you'll still be the commander. However, the commander is me, the Troll Emperor. You'll have to listen to my orders." The Troll Emperor said without hesitation. Yes, the Blood-Scythe Demon King was not surprised. He was only a temporary commander, and after arriving in Elysium, he still had to listen to the strongest. After the Troll Emperor spoke, Emperor Ainshur did not want to be left behind. He asked who the commander of the evil spirit race was. Different from the Troll Emperor's mighty voice, Emperor Ainshur's voice was extremely mysterious and pervasive. It was as if a venomous snake had drilled into one's ear and hissed, making one's scalp go numb. The commander of the evil spirit race was a middle-aged man with a hooked nose. He was called the Eagle Demon King. He walked out and paid his respects to Emperor Ainshur. The evil altar of the evil spirit race is sealed in the number 1 king-level forbidden ground of the Blood Sky continent, the Evil Mace. As long as 72 evil kings join forces to activate the summoning altar technique, the evil altar will be able to break free and be used by the evil spirit race, Emperor Ainshur said. The Eagle Demon King said, "Rest assured, Lord Evil Emperor. This time, our evil spirit race has sent 500 evil kings, and there are more than 100 who are proficient in the summoning altar technique. All right, as long as the evil altar appears, we will be able to unceasingly replenish our evil power without worrying about exhausting it." Emperor Einshur smiled coldly. In Elysium, evil chi was sparse. It was fine for a short war, but for a long war, the evil altar was required to gather evil chi. Troll Emperor will be going first. I hope you can bite the hard bone that is the true spirit continent. Turning his head, Emperor Einshur said to the Troll Emperor. The Troll Emperor smiled. The true spirit continent is hard to bite, and the Sky Sword continent is not to be trifled with either. I'm just afraid that your evil spirit race will suffer setback. The two had already come to an agreement. The evil spirit race would attack the Sky Sword continent, while the demons would attack the true spirit continent. As for the Blood Sky continent, there were no more experts left. All the astral-reaching realm and above experts had gathered in the true spirit continent and the Sky Sword continent. Haha, then let's see who succeeds first. Emperor Einshur didn't care. He brought the numerous evil kings of the evil spirit race and 200 puppet battleships and left. Lord Troll Emperor, where are we going first? The evil spirit race has the evil altar, and we, the demons, also have a demonic power source. Let's go to the chaotic demon ocean first. The Troll Emperor waved his hand and said loudly, "Let's go." The chaotic demon ocean had long since been emptied. All the demonic humans had migrated away. In the depths of the ocean, a black light suddenly rushed toward the surface. Bang! Water splashed everywhere as a tall and perfect body broke out of the water. She had a long neck like a swan, a slender waist, and extremely long legs. However, she didn't give off a weak feeling. On the contrary, she seemed to be a combination of strength and beauty. Her long black hair fluttered in the wind, reaching down to her buttocks. What a pity that the demons have come. Otherwise, I would have been able to cultivate to the third layer of life and death realm. The beautiful woman raised her head and gazed at the sky. At the same time, the Troll Emperor, who was passing through the third layer of Elysium, also saw her. This aura. The Troll Emperor revealed a pensive expression. What a miracle! She actually has the bloodline of the Dark Demoness. Haha, the Troll Emperor, am truly fortunate. Terrifying laughter reverberated throughout the heaven and earth. The Troll Emperor made a grabbing motion, and the sky suddenly darkened. A huge demonic hand shrouded over the beautiful woman like a sky-blotting shadow. Voila! The beautiful woman's complexion didn't change. Behind her, a pair of huge wings unfolded. They weren't bat wings, but the demonic wings, which were even more powerful and filled with power. Puff! The space shattered, and the beautiful woman's figure flickered, streaking toward true spirit continent like a black lightning bolt. Her speed was so fast that it almost reached the level of short-distance teleportation. Where do you think you're going? The Troll Emperor roared, and the sky-blotting demonic hand chased after the beautiful woman. Unfortunately, the beautiful woman's speed wasn't much slower than the demonic hand. Adding on the fact that the further they went, the weaker the Troll Emperor's control over the demonic hand was, making it even harder for him to catch up. It's the bloodline of the Dark Demoness. The cursed Demon Emperor's eyes brightened, and his breathing quickened. If I were you, I wouldn't have any ideas about her. The Lord of Fear disdainfully glanced at the cursed Demon Emperor. You! The cursed Demon Emperor was enraged. However, when the Troll Emperor's gaze swept over, he immediately shut his mouth. The Troll Emperor's gaze was extremely vicious. As long as he said one more word, the latter would most likely tear him apart. Calming his surging emotions, the Troll Emperor coldly ordered, "Unseal the demonic power source with all your strength. I want to kill my way to true spirit continent in the shortest time possible." Yes, numerous demon kings dove into the seabed, heading toward the center of the demonic power ripples. True spirit continent, falling dust sword sect, hum. A sky-rending sword hum soared into the sky. A beam of crimson sword chi shot out of the sword-crafting peak like a soaring dragon, circling around the peak. Master Supreme Grade Sword is about to be completed. On the Spirit Cloud Peak, Dongfang Bai's face lit up. What a frightening sword intent. Lung Xinghan could feel that this sword was different from other swords. This sword was like a god of death. Merely the sword intent it emitted had the bearing of slaughtering gods and demons. With Big Brother here, Elysium will surely defeat the foreign races. Yi Xian and the rest were full of confidence in Yi Chun. In the cave beneath the sword-crafting peak, Yi Chun stretched out his palm and tightly grasped the hilt of the blood-red longsword. Hum! The blood-red longsword let out a long cry, and waves of frightening sword energy were emitted. It was as if he was not holding a sword, but a bloodthirsty creature. At the same time, Yi Chen's aura expanded uncontrollably. It's finally finished. Letting out a sigh of relief, Yi Chen's gaze sharpened. The supreme grade materials used for this sword were the best in Yi Chen's possession. Apart from the most basic star iron, there was also the Death Chi iron, the Blood Demon Emperor's Blood Demon Crystal, and a supreme grade Fire Cloud Stone essence from the Fire Emperor. Of course, the most precious was the Crimson Copper essence gifted to Yi Chun by the Spirit Pill King. The Crimson Copper essence was ranked second among the top 10 miraculous metals. It had the miraculous effect of fusing all metals into one. Whether it was the star power contained in the star iron, the Death Chi contained in the Death Chi iron, the Blood Demon power contained in the Blood Demon Crystal, or the fire energy contained in the Fire Cloud Stone essence, they were all fused together by the Crimson Copper essence. There would not be a chaotic feeling of power, and they were completely fused together, turning into a completely new power. Yi Chun called it the Crimson Power. You've just been born after sensing the foreign race's aura. I'll call you the Demon Slaughtering Sword. The grade of the Demon Slaughtering Sword exceeded Yi Chen's expectations. Perhaps it was because the Crimson Copper essence was truly incredible, or perhaps it was because it was completed during the foreign race's great calamity, or perhaps it was because Yi Chun had imprinted the Destruction Sword intent into the Demon Slaughtering Sword every day. The grade of this sword had exceeded the peak of the Supreme Grade. It was impressively a Supreme Grade Treasure Sword. Chapter 1001. Generally speaking, low Supreme Grade artifacts were ordinary Supreme Grade artifacts. Mid-Supreme Grade artifacts were relatively powerful, and high Supreme Grade artifacts were extremely famous. In the future, even if Yi Chun were no longer around, he and his sword would continue to be passed down, becoming a legend. Holding the Demon Slaughtering Sword in his hand, Yi Chun could feel his sword aura instantly increase. The Destruction Sword intent contained within the sword had even fused with his own. Although it still hadn't reached the 7th step, it had already reached the limit of the 6th step, pulling away from the Immortal Sword intent by a large margin. Pouring Zhen Yuan into the sword, Yi Chun closed his eyes and entered the state of one with the sword, familiarizing himself with the sword's power. In the distance of the fallen dust sword sect, a black light streaked through the sky. Swish! In the blink of an eye, the black light was still very far away, but in the blink of an eye, it had already stopped outside the sect's great protective array. The light faded, revealing a tall and beautiful woman with the demonic wings on her back. Soundlessly, an opening appeared on the great protective array. The beautiful woman's brows twitched, and without making any movements, her figure flickered and entered. Ching Ching, you're out. The first to arrive was the Demon Flower Emperor. Currently, all the demonic humans in the chaotic demon ocean were in the fallen dust sword sect. Yi Chun had given them 5 mountains. In any case, the fallen dust sword sect had 27 mountains, so there was still a lot to spare. Master, the beautiful woman was precisely Murong Qingchong, who had been in seclusion for many years. Let me see. Impressive. You've actually reached the peak of the 2nd sky of life and death realm, the same as Yi Chun, worthy of the dark demonist bloodline. The Demon Flower Emperor carefully sized up Murong Qingchong, and a happy expression appeared on his face. Adding Murong Qingchong There were 3 people in Elysium who could condense a Tao gate. Xuanho's realm was a bit lower, at the peak of the first sky of life and death realm. Yi Chun and Murong Qingshen were both at the peak of the second sky. I also took advantage of a loophole. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to condense a Tao gate in Elysium. Murong Qingshen was very clear that the reason she could condense the gate was not because of her talent, but because she had found a loophole. In the chaotic, demonic seabed, the closer one got to the source of the demonic power fluctuations, the weaker the laws of true spirit world became. By the time she reached the source of the demonic power fluctuations, there were no longer any laws of true spirit world. Thus, she could break through to the peak of second-layer life and death realm in one go. Of course, this was also thanks to her dark demoness bloodline. If it were the demonic flower emperor, she wouldn't dare approach the source of the demonic power fluctuations, fearing that she would be assimilated by the terrifying demonic power. Murong, a clear voice resounded. Murong Qingqing's body stiffened, and she raised her head. Yi Chun, with 2 swords hanging on his left waist, flew over from Sword Forging Peak. The sect protecting array was opened by him, and the way he addressed her hadn't changed for so many years. Although Qing Sheng called him more intimately, Murong represented the past and also represented the difference between their relationship. Yi Chun, Murong Qingqing's voice was somewhat trembling. The two had been separated for so many years. Many times, she had wanted to come out of seclusion to see him. However, thinking of the great calamity of the alien races, she knew that if she didn't have enough strength, she would only be a burden. Therefore, she had forcibly endured her yearning for the day when she could fight shoulder to shoulder with him, sharing life and death together. The long years, months, and days had not diluted her feelings. On the contrary, it had deeply branded Yi Chen's image in her soul. Murong Qingqing's figure was very tall, and she had already reached the space between Yi Chen's eyebrows. Extending her hand, Yi Chen pulled her into his embrace and breathed in the fragrance of her hair. Nestled in Yi Chen's embrace, Murong Qingqiang felt very at ease. The Dark Witch bloodline that was still somewhat uncontrollable also seemed to have calmed down a lot. Cough, cough, cough. Demon Flower Emperor turned around and coughed a few times. Yi Chen let go of Murong Qingqiang and smiled. Senior Demon Flower Emperor, I and Murong haven't seen each other for many years, so I couldn't help myself. Please don't take offense. Demon Flower Emperor was a bit speechless. If not for the fact that she still had some matters to ask Murong Qingqiang, she might have immediately retreated to avoid the awkwardness. Clearing her throat, she said, Qingqiang, you said that the pure demonic power and demonic rules there are enough for you to advance to the third sky of life and death realm and come out early. Could it be? Murong Qingqiang said with a dignified expression, yes, the demons have come. The leading demons probably already have 7-star battle strength, and their demonic power is boundless. A casual attack from them gives me a feeling that I can't block it. Dark Witch bloodline was extraordinary. In terms of cultivation, she seemed to have an extremely frightening talent. Moreover, the source of the demonic power was boundless, and its purity was comparable to the third sky of life and death realm. Because of this, she dared to say that she had full confidence in cultivating to the third sky of life and death realm. Unfortunately, she was still a step too late and couldn't make another breakthrough. The demons have come? Yi Chen wasn't surprised. With his soul power, he had long since sensed the peculiar aura fluctuations of heaven and earth. Murong Qingqiang was merely confirming it. As expected, Demon Flower Emperor faintly nodded. Chaotic Demonic Ocean was a blessed place for demons, allowing them to replenish their demonic power at a faster rate. The reason why they abandoned it was because the demonic human clan couldn't defend it. Moreover, since Yi Chun had taken control of Elysium, the demonic human clan already had a path of retreat. Otherwise, there would only be 2 outcomes if they stayed there. One was to betray Elysium and join the demons, and the other was to rather die than submit and be annihilated by the demons. Neither was what the Demon Flower Emperor wished to see. If my guess is not wrong, The ones attacking true spirit continent should be the demons. We have to take precautions and inform everyone. In the ancient era, there had only been one main battlefield, which was the undivided true spirit continent. But now, there were two battlefields, the true spirit continent and the sky sword continent. The blood sky continent had been abandoned a long time ago, since it was too weak to split its power into three parts. Compared to the true spirit continent, the blood sky continent was still a lot weaker. However, the sky sword continent had the sky sword, which gathered all of the sword chi in the world. Sword artists fighting there would have the home advantage. Of course, if the demons and evil spirit race wanted to join hands to attack a continent, it would be impossible. In order to prevent such a situation from happening, everyone had spent countless materials and supreme grade spirit stones to build several large-scale teleportation arrays on the two continents, which could transport them over in a split second. And Yi-chun faintly nodded and said, "Let me see how many demonic race troops there are." "Right, use your soul eyes." Demon Flower Emperor and Murong Qingsheng looked at Yi-chun. Facing the direction of chaotic demonic ocean, Yi-chun's forehead suddenly split open, and a silver vertical eye appeared. In the next moment, countless phantoms appeared in Yi-chun's line of sight. As far as his eyes could see, there was a boundless ocean. Soon, Yi-chun saw chaotic demonic ocean. "This is puppet battleships?" Yi-chun's expression was extremely solemn. In the sky above the chaotic demonic ocean, 400 puppet battleships were floating. These puppet battleships were hundreds of meters long, and according to the scale, each battleship could accommodate 5,000 to 6,000 people. Other than that, there were three figures outside the battleship that attracted Yi-chun's attention. One was a majestic middle-aged man who was more than 5 meters tall, and his aura was as terrifying as the ocean. The other was a bald-headed demon with a ferocious gaze, and the ferocious aura on them was almost tangible. Due to the special nature of the soul eyes, Yi-chun could even see countless figures struggling within the ferocious aura, as if they were ghosts that would never be reincarnated. They were mournful and fearful. The last one was a withered, yellow-haired, extremely ugly demon. When he smiled, he revealed a mouthful of uneven yellow teeth. Without any reason, Yi-chun felt enmity towards this person from the bottom of his heart. Although this person's aura was not as ferocious as the bald-headed demon's, his aura was extremely vicious. "What's wrong?" Demon Flower Emperor saw Yi-chun's ugly expression and asked. "Look." Yi-chun waved his hand. In the void, the power of space condensed, and a 5-colored light screen appeared. On the light screen, the scene Yi-chun saw appeared. 400 puppet battleships. This is really troublesome. Demon Flower Emperor sucked in a breath of cold air. Murong Qingqing's brows also couldn't help but crease. At that time, all her attention was on the Troll Emperor, so she didn't notice so many battleships. There's actually someone spying on us from so far away. In the chaotic, demonic ocean, Cursed Demon Emperor sensed something and glanced in the direction of True Spirit Continent. Someone is spying on us. They should be using some kind of treasure, right? The Lord of Fear guessed. "Oomph. You're looking down on me, Cursed Demon Emperor." The Cursed Demon Emperor possessed curse power, so he was extremely sensitive to spying, and even more sensitive to hostility. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to live to this day unscathed. Evil haunting curse. Following the Cursed Demon Emperor's incantation, an incorporeal curse aura dispersed in the void, following Yi-chun's gaze and returning to its source. In the falling dust sword sect millions of li away, Yi-chun's head swayed slightly, and his soul eyes operation was immediately interrupted. Sensing his aura, the 5-colored light screen in the void shattered as well. The last scene was the Cursed Demon Emperor's eyes filled with malice, piercing straight into the depths of one's soul. If an ordinary person saw this gaze, they would immediately die of fear. Life and Death Kings without a strong mental state would also have endless nightmares, and their mental state would be exhausted. However, no matter how powerful the gaze was, it was not as powerful as a direct curse. Right now, Yi-chun was cursed. On your body, Morong Qingsheng was startled. In her vision, countless evil spirits drilled out of Yi Chen's body. These evil spirits seemed to have taken root in Yi Chen's body, wanting to devour his flesh and blood. Strangely, Morong Qingsheng could see it, but the Demon Flower Emperor couldn't. What a powerful curse power! Yi Chen activated the Destruction Sword Intent and Immortal Sword Intent, but it was hard to remove them. This curse power had already reached a certain level, and it was almost impossible to save the victim. Oomph. Holding the demon's slaughtering sword with his right hand, Yi Chen slightly pulled it out. Whoosh! A gust of wind rose as a frightening sword intent exploded from Yi Chen's body. The formless curse power was immediately shaken out, turning into nothingness. Chapter 1002. The curse is gone. The cursed Demon Emperor could clearly sense that he had lost control of the Ghost Haunt curse. Curses were illusory and untraceable. The only thing that could remove curses was martial will. Soul power attacks were useless. Of course, apart from martial will, there were also some special treasures that could remove curses. Do you know who it is? The Lord of Fear asked. It's Yi Chen, and there's a human demon with the Dark Witch's bloodline beside him. With the feedback of the curse power, the cursed Demon Emperor already knew who was spying on him. This demon can actually use my gaze as a channel to transmit the curse. Even with my Destruction Sword Intent and Immortal Sword Intent, it's difficult to remove it at once. Only by combining it with the sharp aura of the Demon Slayer Sword can it be effective. Yi Chen's expression was very serious. He was not afraid of the opponent's curse, but it didn't mean that others were not. If the opponent was allowed to use it in a battle, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even if this kind of person's strength hadn't reached the 7-star level, his threat had already reached the 7-star level. Such a powerful curse. Although the Demon Flower Emperor didn't see the image of the Ghost Haunt just now, he could sense that Yi Chen was filled with an ominous aura. Morong Qingsheng frowned and said, although I don't really understand the principle of the curse, my Dark Witch's bloodline is very sensitive in this aspect. The way the curse spreads seems to be through telepathy. Yes and no. Yi Chen shook his head and said, telepathy is only an external phenomenon. To be more precise, curses are soul poisons that take root in the soul. There's a saying, believe it, don't believe it, don't have it. Once the curse takes root in the soul, your subconscious will believe it to be true, even if you say you don't believe it. As for the ways of transmission, there are many. As long as there is a slight connection, there's a chance of being cursed. For example, eye contact, body contact. Some people are cursed without even knowing it, but it will still be a horrifying disaster because their souls have already sunk into it without them knowing. The human world was a big dye vat, and the soul was full of dust. One day, when the soul was crystal clear and free from the dust, there would be no disasters, and the so-called curses would be nothing more than floating clouds. It was naturally impossible for Yi Chen's soul to reach this level, so he had to rely on his sword intent to expel it. This devil must be the first to die. Yi Chen's eyes flashed with a fiery, killing intent. He was sure that if he didn't kill the cursed Demon Emperor first, Elysium would fall completely. I'll help you. Morong Qingsheng also felt that the threat of the cursed Demon Emperor was far greater than the other demons. The demon's invasion into Elysium was no longer a secret. All the astral reaching and above martial artists knew about it. Ocean gazing was a very small region on the border of eastern and southern regions. Nowadays, the ordinary people who had been living in ocean gazing for generations had all migrated away. Those who remained were basically astral reaching experts and Sea of Soul realm experts. Every day, a large number of astral reaching experts and Sea of Soul realm experts would rush over. The reason why so many astral reaching and Sea of Soul realm martial artists were gathered here was because this place would become a battlefield that would decide the future of Elysium. The true spirit continent was incomparably vast. If the demons wanted to take over the continent, they wouldn't be able to kill wherever they went. A mere 2 million army would be nothing more than a drop of water in the ocean. Even if they killed until the next year, they wouldn't be able to kill all the high-level martial artists of the continent. Therefore, as long as the continent decided to set the battlefield as the ocean gazing, the demons would definitely do so. Since the ancient times, the battles between Elysium and the alien races would always be set in one place. If one side was defeated, the battlefront would be stretched out until it covered the whole world. Lynch, let's see who can kill more demons this time. On top of a small hill in the ocean gazing, dozens of people were gathered. These people were from the Windy Nation, and they were not very old. Judging from their appearance, they didn't seem to be more than 30 years old. The one who spoke was Chuanhauern from the Falling Dust Swordmaster. His current cultivation had already reached the second level of life and death challenge. In the entire Windy Nation, besides the only life and death realm warrior, Yi Chun, there was only one other person who could compete with him, and that was North Snow Martial School's Lynch. If it is a battle, I might not be able to beat you, but in terms of killing, you are not as good as me. Lynch said with his arms crossed in front of his chest. Hee, that might not be the case. Zhang Hauern laughed. Hey, you too. Don't treat us like we don't exist. After all, I used to be stronger than you too. Lu Han's Han, who was standing next to North Snow young Master Su Wan, said helplessly, Lu, how old are you? Why are you still fighting for this? Not far away, Zhu Mei, who was talking with a couple of women, teased her husband. The two had been married for many years. Even if they were to die, they would die together. There was no reason for them to risk their lives for others while they hid in a corner and tried to survive. Of course, there were people like that. But these cowards would live in the shadows for the rest of their lives. They would lose their dignity and the essence of a martial artist. Brother Zhang, let's have a battle as well. Let's see if you can kill more Sea of Souls realm demons, or I can kill more astral-reaching realm demons. Yi Xian walked over with a smile on his face. Zhang Hauern shook his head and said with a bit of worry, I really don't know why your brother would let you come. As a second-level life and death challenge warrior, Zhang Hauern had the ability to protect himself, so he would not be killed in a short period of time. On the other hand, Yi Xian was only at early astral-reaching realm, which could be considered as cannon fodder. Allowing Yi Xian to come would not be a big deal, but Yi Xiaoxiao had also come. This little girl had never killed anyone before, so she was very kind. Yi Xian said seriously, My brother said that without the determination to die, there is no hope of winning. Hearing him, everyone on the hill went silent. Indeed, since the demons dare to come, they must have a high chance of winning. If they did not have the determination to die, then they should not have come. They were just talking and laughing before to relieve the pressure. The determination to die? The former Emerald Prince, Zhuang Fei, raised his head and looked at the sky. Yi Chun, the little genius from back then, had left him behind since a long time ago. However, as time went by, he had matured and forgotten a lot of things. He believed that Yi Chun had forgotten him as well. Originally, they would not have any interaction in this life. However, this battle had connected them together because they were both fighting for Elysium. Leader, why don't we also compete to see who can kill more people? On the side, the former Palm Absolute, Lu Wuxiang, smiled and said to Zhuang Fei, Sure. Zhuang Fei also smiled, his face glowing. Isn't that Sister Ji? Lu Wuxiang's gaze fell on the corner of the hill. There, a lonely figure was standing there. It was the former disciple of the Emerald Martial Palace, Ji Shuyan. She had left the Emerald Martial Palace a long time ago, and no one knew where she went. Don't disturb her. Perhaps she just wants to see someone. Maybe she just wants to free herself. Zhuang Fei shook his head, stopping Lu Wuxiang from going over to greet her. Smiling bitterly, Lu Wuxiang did not go over. Zhang Hauern, Luo Han's Han, Zhu Mei and the others also saw Ji Xuan. They all knew about the things that happened between Yi Chun and Ji Xuan. They could only sigh at the impermanence of the world. This child, after so many years, she is still alone. Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing also came. Shen Yuqing's heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help but walk over. Snow Goose. Shen Yuqing reached out his hand and gently held Ji Xuan in his arms. Ji Xuan didn't struggle. She said with a trembling voice, Aunt Qing. Good girl, I thought I would never see you again." Shen Yuqing couldn't help but shed tears. Raising her head, Ji Shuyan's eyes were wet. "Don't you blame me? You are still young. Speaking of which, your mother and I are also at fault. We shouldn't have arranged the engagement between you and Chenair. If we didn't do that, you and Chenair might have ended up together instead." Back then, Shen Yuqing was indeed very angry. He felt that Yi Chun had been humiliated. However, as time went by, all that was left were the beautiful memories. Speaking of which, Ji Shuyan wasn't a bad person. She just did something inappropriate at the wrong time. There was no reason for her to carry that burden for the rest of her life because of one mistake. "Aunt Qing, I've already thought it through. You don't have to worry about me." Ji Shuyan smiled. Her eyes were a little absent-minded. In her mind, images of Yi Chun kept appearing. She never knew that a 14 or 15-year-old boy could be so mature. In front of him, she was so childish. Perhaps it was because of this that she couldn't let go. "It's good that you have thought it through. Everything is in the past. Now, let's fight for Elysium together." More and more high-level warriors gathered at the ocean-gazing region. Although they weren't gathered together, waves of powerful aura still caused the clouds in the sky to change. Many of Yi Chen's acquaintances had arrived. Tua Baku, Li Daoxian, Bing Ling, Yin Qihua, Li Xiaoyan, and Jing Aoshuan from the Southern Region Martial Tea Gathering, Hai Wuya from the Sky Martial Region, as well as some people who had grudges with Yi Chun, such as Si Kongsheng. There were too many of them. They had witnessed Yi Chen's growth, and they had interacted with Yi Chun for a period of time. Whether it was grudges or hatred, everyone had temporarily forgotten about it. Right now, they were all fighting for Elysium, fighting for themselves. Buzz! In the sky, the figures of life and death kings started to appear. 1, 2, 3. More and more life and death kings appeared. Below, everyone's gazes couldn't help but fall on them. The final outcome of this battle would still be decided by the life and death kings. If the life and death kings of Elysium lost, then no matter how they struggled, they would not be able to escape the fate of being enslaved. Buzz! 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 Another 3 figures appeared, standing in front of all the life and death kings. The one in the middle seemed to have become the center of the world the moment he appeared, because everyone was paying attention to him. Even the life and death kings were no exception. He was very young, only in his early 20s. However, unknowingly, he had become the spiritual pillar of Elysium. His legendary glory made him have no choice but to shoulder the pressure of the entire world. He was Yi Chun. Chapter 1003. Yi Chun, I didn't expect that we would have the chance to fight side by side. Following Yi Chun's arrival, the kings of the younger generation appeared one after another. The one who spoke was a green-robed young man with a pair of sharp and narrow eyes and a hint of evilness. Lu Wujian, long time no see. Yi Chun smiled faintly. This person was none other than Lu Wujian of West Ocean Sword Sect. Of course, he was no longer West Ocean Sword Sect, but West Ocean Sword King. Unfortunately, Snow Sword of Gojoseon is in Sky Sword Continent. Otherwise, I like to see who is the second sword artist of this era. Lu Wujian had already given up on the idea of competing with Yi Chun. It was not because he had lost his fighting spirit, but because he felt that he was biting off more than he could chew. Whether it was Snow Sword of Gojoseon or Star Sword King, they were both stronger than him, not to mention Sword King Yi Chun, who was at the peak of his power. West Ocean Sword King, with your current strength, you are still quite lacking compared to Snow Sword of Gojoseon. In the distance, Chu Zhongtian flew over with a domineering aura and laughed heartily. "Oh, so it's Celestial Dipper King." Lu Wujian turned his head and sized up Chu Zhongtian. The most famous person in Elysium right now was naturally Yi Chun. Below Yi Chun were the 4 kings of the new generation. These 4 kings were Dugu Blade King Dugaju, Snow Sword of Gojoseon Ishuehan, Celestial Dipper King Chu Zhongtian, and Bright Moon King Dantai Mingwei. Among them, Dugaju's title was the surname of Dugu clan. Ishuehan's Marquis Sword Snow had changed from Marquis to King. Chu Zhongtian's previous title was Astral Spirit Son, but he didn't like his king title being Astral Spirit King, so he changed it to Celestial Dipper King. As for Dantai Mingyue's title, she took her own name. The four kings weren't a collective name. They only represented the first tier's new generation kings. Below the four kings were the second tier's new generation kings. There are quite a few of them, such as Star Sword King Wei Tianshun, Sword Formation King Bu Qingyun, Blue Phoenix King Yin Fengfeng, White Snow King Bai Wuxue, Wild Goose Sword King Lu Xiaoyu, West Ocean Sword King Lu Wujian, Sky King Jiang Tian, Demonic Blade Queen Lan Sanmei, and so on. There were simply too many of them. The first tier only had 4, while the second tier had more than 30. As long as they were geniuses who had entered the life and death realm in recent years, they would all be in these 2 tiers. Celestial Dipper King Chu Zhongtian was someone Lu Wujian didn't put in his eyes at all. However, he didn't expect that the higher his realm, the more frightening his battle strength would be. From being inconspicuous at the beginning, he had now become one of the 4 kings. Perhaps only Elysium's unrivaled Yichun could compare to him. Well said. Chu Zhongtian's red hair was eye-catching like a blood-colored flame. Swish! Swish! Just as the two were talking, the white-haired Duguju and the moon-white-gowned Dantai Mingyue arrived together. After entering the life and death realm, Duguju was brimming with a frightening aura that kept strangers away. However, his eyes were clear and translucent, like a pair of blue waves. They were like a long and narrow blade that had just been washed in ice water, flickering with a cold light without any impurities. Anyone who came into contact with this cold light would immediately feel their soul being sliced apart. Dantai Mingyue, on the other hand, didn't have this kind of sharp aura. She was like the omnipresent moonlight, gentle and bright, not giving off any pressure. At the same time, no one could sense her specific location. It was as if she herself was condensed from moonlight and had no physical form. Duguju, it seems like you've already made your preparations. Yichen glanced at the two of them. Naturally, this battle will be very bitter. Any one of us can die. I hope you won't be careless. Duguju was very powerful, but compared to Chu Zhongtian, Duguju was more likely to die. This was because Chu Zhongtian possessed the evil spirit body, which gave him an extremely powerful physical defense. His protective astral yuan was also not something ordinary people could break. Yichen didn't wish for Duguju to die in this battle, which would be a huge loss for Elysium. Many thanks for the reminder. Although I've already made up my mind to die, anyone who wants to kill me will have to pay with their lives. Duguju could sense Yi Chen's sincerity, and his expression softened somewhat. Next, Sky King Jiang Tian also came. Speaking of which, Jiang Tian and the Air Emperor all had some grudges with Yi Chen, but Yi Chen didn't care about it anymore. This was not only because of the impending battle, but also because there was no need to care about those small grudges, as long as they didn't provoke him in the future. Yi Chen, the woman standing with Annie, has been looking at you. Murong Qingcheng said to Yi Chen. I know. With Yi Chen's sensitivity to gazes, how could he not notice Ji Shuyan? The past is like smoke gone with the wind. Do you want to know who she is? Yi Chen didn't tell her about this. I don't want to know. Murong Qingcheng smiled and shook her head. Let's hope she can survive. After thinking for a while, Yi Chen silently flicked his finger toward Ji Shuyan. A bean-sized blue crystal shot into Ji Shuyan's forehead at a speed that even his soul power couldn't detect. On top of the small mountain, Ji Shuyan seemed to be in a daze. She felt as if something had appeared in her mind, but nothing seemed to have happened. In the end, she thought it was because of the pressure. The size of the sea gazing was much smaller than the South River region. It was no more than 2 million miles wide, which was equivalent to the size of a few big countries. As time passed, more and more high-level warriors gathered at the sea gazing. From hundreds of thousands, it had increased to nearly 1 million. It was a sea of people. Meanwhile, the number of life and death kings in the sky had also exceeded 500. On the true spirit continent, there were about 100 human kings alone. Adding the newly added human kings in the recent years, there were about 120 of them. The Blood Sky continent's human kings had been divided. A small portion had entered the Sky Sword continent, and the remaining 2/3 had arrived at the true spirit continent. As for the human kings from the ocean, there were about 50 of them. Altogether, there were about 200 of them. These are the human kings. The beast kings had more than 300 of them. More than 500 life and death kings, and nearly 1,000,000 astral-reaching and Sea of Soul Realm warriors were a frightening force. However, Yi Chen knew that compared to the demon race army, it was still too little. Each of the 400 puppet battleships could carry about 5,000 demons. Adding them together, it would be an army of 2 million, which was twice as much as the previous one. In the war between nations, it was not a myth to win with a small number. A sneak attack might be able to take out a large portion of the enemy's strength. However, in the war between high-level warriors, it was almost impossible to win with a small number. Trying to sneak attack would be suicide. Therefore, they could only fight fair and square, using blood to pave the way for their teammates. The young kings and the old kings all looked toward the southwest with a solemn expression. That was the direction the demon army would be coming from. 1 day passed, and no one had touched a drop of water. 2 days passed. 3 days passed. The 4th day, the first to arrive were not the demons, but 2 life and death kings. If the demons want to occupy the true spirit continent, they'll have to ask me, Jailer, first. The aura of these two was incomparably powerful, much more powerful than even Su King. Master, Prison King's face revealed an ecstatic expression. This person was none other than the leader of the prison gate, Jailer. He himself had also inherited Jailer's legacy. At the same time, some very old life and death kings recognized the two. Of these two, the tall and sturdy old man was the once glorious figure of the prison gate, Jailer, and the white-haired old man was the leader of the Void Gate, Void Ancestor. When they faded out of sight, it was said that they already had 6-star battle strength. Hundreds of years had passed, and their strength had not improved at all. Great! With the return of Void Ancestor and Jailer, our overall strength has increased by a lot. Through word of mouth, everyone came to know the two's identity, especially when they found out that these two already had 6-star battle power hundreds of years ago. They were all extremely excited. It should be known that among them, apart from Yi Chun, who was extremely unfathomable, there was almost no one with 6-star battle power. This was what made them feel the most despair. Now that they had 2 such powerful kings, how could they not be happy? 6-star battle strength? Yi Chun looked over. In fact, everyone knew that he was not the only one with 6-star battle strength. In the past few years, Shinho had made enormous progress. Apart from spending some of her energy on seals, she spent most of her energy on increasing her strength. Adding her realm, which had reached the peak of the first layer of life and death realm, her battle strength had already reached 6-star. Apart from that, Murong Qingsheng, who had reached the peak of the second layer of life and death realm and had the bloodline of Dark Witch, also had 6-star battle strength. This point had been personally verified by Yi Chun. Moreover, Yi Chun didn't believe that Su King hadn't made any progress in the past few years. In a few years, Yi Chun's strength could increase by more than 10 times. For Su King to increase by 2 or 3 times wouldn't be surprising. As for the other titled monarchs with high grade 5-star battle strength, they should also have close to 6-star battle strength. Yi Chun didn't know the exact strength of Duga Ju, Chu Zhongqian, and Dantai Mingyue. However, from the strength they had displayed recently, he could tell that they were all high-grade 5-star battle strength. After all, they had been in life and death realm for a year or two. When Yi Chun entered life and death realm, he was able to defeat Su King within a year. These people's talent was only slightly inferior to his. Moreover, they were all preparing for a great battle. You're Yi Chun? Void Ancestor sized up Yi Chun at the front. Not bad. Yi Chun faintly nodded. Very good. There's finally a peerless character among the younger generation. There's still hope for this war. Void Ancestor was the previous generation's Void Sect Master, and his eyesight was extremely sharp. However, he couldn't see through Yi Chun. This meant that the latter's strength was not inferior to his, and might even surpass him. This kid can't be underestimated. Jailer also noticed that Yi Chun was different from masses. From the fact that he could stand at the front without anyone questioning him, It was clear that everyone was convinced of his strength. This girl doesn't seem simple. Shifting their attention from Yi-chun, their gazes fell on Murong Qingsheng. Just as they were about to speak, a layer of black suddenly appeared in the horizon. It was a huge puppet battleship. As the puppet battleship appeared, a suffocating aura swept over. Chapter 1004. The demons are here. The battle had yet to begin, but a horrifying aura had already filled the air. Everyone knew that this battle was unavoidable. For the safety of their families, for the independence of Elysium, and for their descendants to not be enslaved, they could only fight. If they did, they would become sinners. In their ears, they seemed to hear the screams of their descendants. This made their hearts tighten and their eyes turn red. Fight to the death. It was unknown who was the first to yell. Fight to the death. Fight to the death. Roars of anger rang out one after another until everyone was yelling in unison. The roar of millions of high-level warriors tore apart the astonishing sky. The extreme void and even the zenith sky started to shake. For a moment, silver lightning streaked across the sky. Hurricanes, snow, burning clouds, torrential rain. All sorts of phenomena appeared in the sky of the endless ocean. It was as if even the heavens were angry. The horrifying aura did not scare off the demon army. The huge black battleships continued to advance at a constant speed, eventually stopping at the edge of the endless ocean. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The cabin doors opened, and figures flew out one after another. Among these figures, the shortest one was close to 3 meters tall, and some were more than 5 meters tall. There were even some that were more than 100 meters tall. They were not ordinary demons, but demon kings who had stepped into the life and death realm. As for their numbers, they were close to 1,000. Nearly 1,000 demon kings appeared in front of the battleships, led by 3 demons with the most powerful aura. Pong! Suddenly, a huge rhombus-shaped crystal was thrown down, creating a crater on the ground. It was a black rhombus-shaped crystal that was as big as a small island. Both sides of the crystal were wrapped in bronze metal, and the surface of the metal was engraved with countless patterns. Each time it flickered, a huge amount of demonic power would be released. After being diluted, the demonic power would turn into dense demonic chi. Almost in the blink of an eye, the surrounding 100 li had been corroded by the demonic chi. Although one could still see, it had become dark and gloomy, and even sunlight could not shine in. It was like an extremely gloomy sky that was rarely seen in 100 years. However, it was even more gloomy than a gloomy sky. Apart from demonic chi, no other natural yuan chi could exist inside. This is Yi-chun, Murong Qingsheng, and the Demon Flower Emperor narrowed their eyes. This black rhombus-shaped crystal was obviously something from the depths of the Chaos Demon Sea. They didn't expect that the other party would actually bring it over. This was turning the ocean gazing into their home field. It's really dangerous this time, the Demon Flower Emperor said word by word. Regardless of whether we have it or not, this war will be extremely dangerous. It can be said that there's only a slim chance of survival. We can only fight to the death. Taking a deep breath, Yi-chun calmed down. The others also noticed the black diamond-shaped crystal and the strange phenomenon caused by the crystal. They had a bad feeling in their hearts. They didn't think that the demons would do anything that wasn't good for them. Judging from the effect of the black diamond-shaped crystal, this thing would definitely allow the demons to recover their magic power faster, and they wouldn't run out of magic power. Of course, even though they had a bad premonition in their hearts, no one retreated. Before they came, they were already prepared to die. The appearance of the black rhombus-shaped crystal not only made them feel bitter in their hearts, but also aroused their unyielding fighting spirit. It's really interesting. I actually don't feel the slightest bit of fear. The Lord of Fear was very sensitive to the fear in people's hearts. However, what surprised him was that these people didn't show any fear, as if they already had nothing to fear. This is just on the surface. When we display our overwhelming strength, they will know what fear is. The cursed demon emperor chuckled and looked around. Soon his eyes lit up. There were actually so many beauties with extraordinary temperaments among the true spirit kings. Not to mention the human demon with the dark witch's bloodline. There was also the white-clothed Xianhou and the demon flower emperor with the flower demon's bloodline. There were also many others that he hadn't heard of. For example, standing next to the white-haired young man was a woman in a white gown with an ethereal temperament. Standing next to Xianhou was a green-clothed woman who was as noble as a phoenix. And there was also a blue-clothed woman standing next to the black-clothed middle-aged man. All of them were stunning beauties, and they weren't inferior to his previous confidants. In fact, they might even be superior. It wasn't in vain that I was sealed for tens of thousands of years. They really treated me well. The cursed demon emperor licked his lips and had a ferocious look on his face. Standing at the front of the crowd, Yichun focused his gaze on the troll emperor and said, "The demons have been spying on Elysium for many years. War after war, they haven't been able to defeat Elysium. This time will be no exception. If Your Excellency doesn't wish for the demons to suffer heavy casualties, I advise you to leave Elysium now. Otherwise, we won't rest until one of us is dead." This sentence was superfluous, but Yichun had to say it. First, it was to show the other party the determination of Elysium. Second, it was to tell the other party that even if they wanted to conquer Elysium, they would have to pay a heavy price. Won't rest until one of us is dead? Hee. Indeed, after this war, the demons will definitely suffer losses. However, I believe that compared to obtaining the whole of Elysium, paying a small price is worth it. After all, there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The troll emperor smiled and changed his tone. With an oppressive tone, he said, "This time, we, the demons, have mobilized 1,000 demon kings and 2 million demon army. If you think that you can make us hesitate with just a few words, then you are gravely mistaken. If you don't want to die without a complete corpse and ignite the whole of Elysium in the flames of war, surrender. Those who surrender will not be killed. Those who surrender will not be killed." The last sentence, the troll emperor roared out with his thick, demonic energy. His majestic voice was like a tsunami, blowing away the lightning, hurricanes, snow, and fire clouds in the sky, as well as the torrential rain. The sky cleared up. Intense demonic energy surged over, gloomy and murderous. In Elysium, there are only kings who die in battle. There are no kings who surrender. The two elders, Void Ancestor and Jailer, took a step forward and roared together. Rumble. Merely the sound of the collision was enough to create an apocalyptic scene between the two armies. The space was like a spider web, cracking open one after another. "Very well, then all of you will die." The cursed demon emperor chuckled strangely. His laughter was like a demonic sound, penetrating through every nook and cranny. Behind the numerous demons, a black flood surged out from the puppet battleships. This was the army of demons. The lowest cultivation base was mid-astral reaching realm, and there was not a single early astral reaching realm. In other words, if not for the suppression of Elysium's rules, the lowest cultivation base of these people would be late astral reaching realm. It should be known that some of the Elysium martial artists who had come to the ocean gazing had just stepped into the astral reaching realm. As for why they didn't directly attack with the puppet battleships, it was mainly because the puppet battleship's main purpose was not to fight, but to transport. Although each puppet battleship could actually fight against several ordinary life and death kings, there were so many kings present. As long as a powerful tidal monarch made a few moves, they would be able to destroy a large number of puppet battleships. This kind of loss was not something the demons wanted to bear. In any case, with their current strength, they were already able to suppress Elysium. There is really no need for them to waste the astonishingly valuable puppet battleships. Raising his right arm high, the troll emperor fiercely swung down, "Kill!" Clang! At the same time, Yichun had already pulled out the demon slaughtering sword. The crimson sword flickered with a bloodlight that could make one's heart palpitate. It dyed the sky blood red, and the demonic chi was annihilated. Pointing the demon's slaughtering sword forward, Yichun also roared, "Fight!" Bang! The sky shattered, and the kings of both sides rushed out like two black clouds colliding. The aura was so frightening that it couldn't be described with words. It was like the scene of Doomsday. No! Before the two sides even reached each other, the cursed demon emperor's eyes widened, and he fell from the sky with lifeless eyes. His life aura was completely gone, and he died instantly. Damn it! The troll emperor's eyes were filled with extreme anger. The two sides had unexpectedly joined hands to use a soul attack, instantly annihilating the soul of the cursed demon emperor. Success! Yi Chun heaved a sigh of relief. The cursed demon emperor was an expert in curses, and even his magic was cursed magic, which was a great threat. Therefore, before this, Yi Chun had already discussed with everyone, and let those who knew how to use soul attacks to attack together, annihilate the cursed demon emperor's soul. Although not all the kings of Elysium had practiced soul attack secret techniques, among the 500 people, there were still dozens of them. If dozens of people joined hands to attack, not to mention the cursed demon emperor, even Yi Chun would die without a doubt. This was the terror and ruthlessness of war. Being strong could not guarantee one's own safety, and it would only make one's life easier. Of course, soul attacks consumed a lot of soul power. They could still use it once, but if they used it again, everyone's condition would decline. Only Yi Chun, who had a strong soul power, could use it multiple times. Therefore, killing the cursed demon emperor had to be done in one go. As soon as the cursed demon emperor died, the troll emperor and the Lord of Fear emitted an astonishing murderous intent. Demons were not good at studying the soul, so among them, only 1 in 10,000 knew how to use soul attacks. However, demons were born with strong soul defense, and in a one-on-one situation, it was impossible to annihilate their souls. They did not expect that the other side would target the cursed demon emperor, and conversely, if the other side targeted them, they would definitely die. The duration of a soul attack was extremely short, and there was no time to use it a second time. As soon as the cursed demon emperor died, the two sides collided. What kind of scene was this? In just the first collision, dozens of people turned in a blood mist, dying miserably on the spot. Among them were demons and Elysiums. Demons did not even lose 10 people, while Elysium lost more than 20 people. These 20 people were not ordinary martial artists, but genuine life and death kings. Normally, they could call the wind and summon the rain, enjoying great glory. But now, they were being harvested like rice straws. The cruelty of war appeared in everyone's mind for the first time.